Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you guys for joining me. Happy Friday. We are here live on January 16th, 2026, and it is the new moon in Capricorn astrology readings that I'm doing for you guys. I hope you're doing well. I hear myself. Sorry, let me turn this off. I'm excited to be back. So if you guys are seeing this, give me a thumbs up, like this video, share the stream. Make sure you're subscribed, click that bell button below so you can see more of my live videos on the channel. And we have a whole list of people who are here. So I'm gonna say hi to everybody in the chat. There's some people that have been here for a hot minute. So Deanna's back, what's up? Amanda's back, Enchanted's here. What's going on? Freedom Spark, nice to see you again. And the Feral Rider's here, what's going on, girl? Haven't seen you for a while. Watkins Cat House, who else is here? David's here, Corey's here. Be Well with T, thanks for joining level 4 memberships. If you want to get your reading today, just send your information in the chat, put your time, date of birth, location, and your question. I'm answering really whatever you guys want to know, so I'll answer questions about timing. If you have questions about synastry, we offer synastry readings. If you want to know what this new moon in Capricorn means for you, or if you have questions about other transits or natal aspects, I'm your girl. Obviously, if you guys are seeing this on Saturday or Sunday, I'm no longer live, so please don't send any payment because we're no longer live. I hope to catch you guys next week on Friday. I'll be here for live tarot readings. Equally, if you guys want to book a reading with me, I am a busy lady, so click the links below, head over to beyondtheveiltarot.com. I'm now booking in April, May, and June of this year, so if you know that you want to get a reading, get on my list. You guys can see everything that I have to offer. Natal charts, solar returns, election dates, relocation, transits, the whole 9 yards. And after 2 years, I'm finally back. I'm going to be teaching my Astro 301 at the end of this month. I only have a few seats left, and we're going to be doing 8 weeks live together on Zoom, where I'm teaching you guys all of my tips and tricks for advanced techniques in astrology that I use for prediction to help you guys kind of go from Astro 101, where you learn just about natal charts, to 201, where you learn about transits and predictive methods, and 301 to put it all together to help you guys start your own astrological practice if that's something that you want to do, or if you just want to advance some of your astrology skills. I'd love to have you guys there. Check out my courses page at beyondtheveiltarot.com. Equally, if you guys want to join memberships, you can. I'm a full-time content creator. There's 4 different levels, but level 4 memberships on my channel is going to get you in first. We take the level 4 members first on any one live during the month on Friday. You can choose if you want 1 tarot or 1 astrology reading once a month. So it supports me. It helps me keep doing what I'm doing, putting out these videos throughout the week, but also it helps you kind of get in with me if you want to be able to check in once a month. All right, I see Be Well. I'll add your info in just a second. So just so you guys know, because a lot of people are asking questions, if you are a member, you can get a question about your chart. I do not do synastry readings for level 4 memberships. So you guys can either pay the difference, so you have to send the difference for that amount to PayPal and scan the QR code, and you can go to PayPal. And if you guys are wanting to just get a reading for synastry, if you're not a member, you can do that as well. So all the readings are by donation, so you guys have to either scan the QR code right over here. It'll take you to my PayPal, where you really have to put this information. So I need to know your time, your date of birth. Please spell out the month and put the AM or the PM, the city, state, and the location where you guys were born, and also your one question. I see a lot of people who are like, tell me about the entire year. I'm not going to be able to do that. And then there's people who want to know about relationships. So unless you're getting a synastry reading, I won't be answering questions about other people for the most part. Sometimes I'll look at what's going on, but I can see a lot of things that are going on with your own personal transits, just for the sake of making sure that everybody's getting their allotment of time for readings this evening. We do have a lot of people who have already signed up. We will let you guys know when we're going to call last call. So when you hear us call that, you're going to see a countdown, and it's going to let you guys know how much longer we have. Once we close it down, we won't take any other readings. You guys can come back to this video at a later date. So I know we've got people all over the world in different time zones, but once you get your reading, it's going to stay here. So you can come back and watch it again. You can also come back and leave me some comments or some feedback when you see some of the things that kind of manifest. And if you have any questions, let me know. We're also here to help you in the chat. I appreciate your patience because, we are doing the readings in the order that we receive them. So if you hear your name, that means that I already have your payment. So I just want to do that off the top. As we're getting into the reading, sometimes it gets a little crazy, so I appreciate your patience. I will update you guys when we do have another wave of people that come in. But this is who I've got so far. So I will be adding Be Well with T. Let me know, T, if you have just a question about something, or if you're wanting to, if you want to do the difference on PayPal, you can. So you can send, I think it's like a 20, or I'm not sure how much the difference is between the two, because you joined memberships. So can we figure out how much the memberships are for level 4, and then just let me know what the difference is, so we know what she can send through PayPal. You have me in there under, I'm sure I have your chart, but I'll plug it in again just to save it. I can see your comments. All right, cool. And then what else was I going to say? Yeah, that's pretty much it. So here's who I have already. If you hear your name, I already have you. I'm locked out of PayPal. How else can I pay you the difference? That I'm not sure. Unless you want to send like a difference, you can send like another super chat payment. I don't know if you can select the amounts, because I can't see it on my end because I'm the streamer. But if there's a different amount for super chat, if you want to save that, send that, you can send it through the chat. I don't know what's been going on with PayPal. I've been having a hate-hate relationship with PayPal for the last month or so. I've had nothing but problems. All right, so here's who I've got. We've got level 4 members, Deanna, Asha, Amanda, Enchanted, and then Be Well, so I can put that information in for you if you want to do the synastry. For everybody else, I've got Aram, Madavi, Sunny Side Up, Corey, Estella, Private, so there's somebody who doesn't want their name known, so if you hear Private, that's you. Aaron's got some synastry questions, Tawny got in there, and that's who I have so far. So we'll leave it open for a little bit so we can take probably a couple more people, and then we will wrap it up. But we're going to be starting first with my level 4 memberships. So Deanna, Asha, and Amanda, you guys are all on deck. So if you guys want to get your readings, listen up. And I've got Deanna coming back because we're taking a look at some stuff going on with her solar return. All right, so let's see. Deanna left me a little love note up here. She said, hey, Candace, circling back to look at the solar return. I'm in a first house year. Yes, first house ruled by the sun, and not the 12th. So a couple things is I looked at the solar return from like Los Angeles or like Inglewood. So I did it from that location because I know you're kind of traveling around a bit. And even if you didn't have your birthday there, it's going to be picking up the energy of where you're actually living. So that's where I'm going to be looking at the kind of solar return. So just looking at the annual perfection, just strictly that. Obviously, Deanna's a Leo rising. She's got her sun in Capricorn. She's got her moon in Libra. And she just had her birthday here in the beginning of January. So happy belated. And she's in annual perfection year 1. Okay, so this is one of the techniques that I kind of talk about in my Astro 201 course. Basically, we look at it from the perspective of whole signs. Each year, a certain house is going to get highlighted. So because she's in a first house year, it's going to be about first house themes. So it's her body, it's her identity, it's her visibility. It's also vitality because it's ruled by the sun. And she's going to be pretty impacted when we have solar eclipses like the one that we're going to have in mid-February, which will be in her opposite sign, Aquarius. So you'll want to watch for that. You're also going to be really impacted when you have any other conjunctions, squares, aspects with the sun. Solar, right, is very visible. It's very much about our ego and what we're kind of going and doing out in the world. So you also really want to watch all of the new moons. So whenever you have like a new moon, especially when it's going to be in, I would say, Leo, or the one that's kind of coming up in Capricorn, because those are going to be a little bit more personal for you. Those are the ones that you're going to want to watch. So go and download a list of all of the new moons, including the solar eclipses. The one that's in February will be in Aquarius. The one that's in August is going to be taking place in Leo. So that's going to be a big one as well. And when planets are going through the sign of Leo. So when you see that we're getting into like July and August and planets are moving into this particular sign, whole sign, and you'll see actually towards the end of the year, Mars is going to go into Leo and it'll be in shadow. So as we're getting into kind of October, November, Mars is going through Leo, which is a pretty big power up period for you, especially when it comes to what you're learning, you know, traveling, anything with education. And it's also going to be highlighting the themes of the preparation for potentially getting ready to move, because Mars rules your 4th house, Scorpio, which is about transformation of your inner world. So those are all the themes that are going to come about. Now, if I were to look at this from the perspective of your sun placement, right? Like the sun being a part of the whole sign 6, because I do use the whole sign system for looking at the annual perfections. The sun is in the 6th house whole sign in Capricorn at 12 degrees. So that means that part of what is being embraced, or what you're taking action on, or what's becoming more visible, is probably going to be your spiritual routines, because your sun is at a 12. It could also mean that your spiritual work or your spiritual service, anything in regards to your health and your habits and being more diligent, right, and goal-oriented, because Saturn is associated with Capricorn. Now, this is also a sign that in conjunction quincunxes you by sign. So it's kind of a paradox, because, you know, Capricorn and Leos don't really seem to have a lot in common, but I think that you're going to navigate this a little bit better than most people, because you have your chart ruler in your whole sign 6th house. Now, the aspects then that we kind of look at that your sun is making is by sign, it is actually squaring your moon. So it's about a 8-degree square, pretty wide, but still it's saying there's something that's in conflict in regards to your work, your daily habits, your routines, and what you emotionally would either rather be doing, or what's changing emotionally when it comes to how you communicate, 3rd house, your emotions, things that you maybe are afraid to change and transform, Moon Pluto, and conversations that you're having to have with a partner about the possibility of moving and relocating. But this is also tapping into your intuition. And then also we see that the sun within about a 2-degree orb, because it's at 12, squares the north and the south node. So in evolutionary astrology, we call this a skip step. So it means that in this lifetime, you have to really see with the sun in Capricorn, like there is going to be a need to change and transform or dissolve old patterns or old ways of working or old ways of serving in order to break out of your south node kind of karma, south node in Aries. Oh, I do everything alone, right? And in the 8th house is, I don't always have that financial support. I don't always have that ability to maybe feel supported by a partner. Maybe there's some like psychological breakthroughs. And then the sun squaring the north node in Libra is saying, well, there has to be a change with work, habits, and routine if you want to go deeper into the north node in Libra, which is as connecting, partnering with people, and also like traveling. So it looks like there's a lot of trying to kind of communicate this year what changes you're going through work-wise, how you're kind of creating a new system and a new schedule, and like communicating that. Now, it might push you to have to be better or more diligent with your organization or your work skills and your habits. It might push you also to start thinking about, well, do I create a newsletter, right? North node on the 3rd. Do I travel? Do I have retreats? Do I create a website? Do I focus on media? So it's going to be an interesting year, I think, throughout this next year. I would also probably really focus on the fact that Saturn is going to be squaring your sun pretty much all year. So as soon as Saturn goes into Aries, it starts coming into a square with your sun right about the time that it hits 10 degrees. So right around the time, I would say like the end of May, right when you start seeing Saturn hit a 9, it will be coming into your square with your sun from about May, officially square in early June. And it's going to then retrograde back. And pretty much all summer, it's going to be in a square with your sun. And it'll come back into an exact square when it hits about 12 degrees. And it looks like that's going to be taking place for you in September. And then it'll go direct. It looks like right around your south node. This is taking a little too long. And then it's going to come direct here around 7, come back, hit your south node again in early January of 27, and then it's going to square your sun again. Okay, so it's a process and it's an opening square. So my kind of thoughts on this is because Saturn doesn't just rule your health and your habits, it's also going to be about working and collaborating with other people. So it's pushing you to like want to be an entrepreneur, pushing you to market your stuff, pushing you to teach, and maybe some kind of business that you're doing with a partner, or focusing on bringing in more clients. Yes, spiritual work just got a walking pad too. I love that. And then she says, I'm creating a new Substack to release on the 18th and have been really trying to organize my daily schedule for clients and retreats and teaching yoga. So you're already doing it, right? You're already doing it. Part of it's also, there's just a very powerful new moon that's setting up. And that new moon is in the area of your chart that's saying, okay, it's time to get kind of structured and serious with your work and what services you want to offer. And with some of the sextiles that we're seeing to Saturn and Neptune is like dissolving any old financial concerns, spiritual woes, insecurities, and it's helping really kind of build an opportunity to bring in more resources through things that are kind of spiritually minded and also like structured. She says, I feel the vibes. It's a good new moon, but you're going to see that it's going to take the better part of about, 6 months to kind of see it fully kind of blossom, especially over the summer. Definitely maybe go and reflect on what happened in like the mid to late 90s, the last time Saturn came into a square with your sun, because not only do you want to watch those transits anyway, but being that you're also in a solar year, it's going to pack a little bit more of a punch. And Saturn will like conjunct your south node. It's going to oppose your Pluto. So it's definitely going to test the way that you're kind of communicating and connecting with people. And it may be bringing in people who can help you with like marketing your business, or it might bring in a prominent teacher or a mentor to kind of help you structure some of the things that you're going to be working on throughout this next year. So the opening square is definitely, I think, a bit challenging, because sometimes when your sun is at a 12, like you're so used to going through things kind of intuitively and feeling things out, or maybe being a little reluctant to like make changes from things that are really structured and like routine jobs. And now it's manifesting in, I'm traveling new places, I'm teaching, I'm thinking about publishing, I'm writing. And the positive thing I think about getting Saturn back into Aries is suddenly there's going to be a lot of people that have a lot more energy to like go and get the show on the road and be more entrepreneurial and independent. But it's going to test Capricorns because it's 4 signs away. It's going to require them to like leave their home or get out of their home or venture to foreign lands. And that's definitely happening for you. As a Leo rising, I think like the Saturn trine and like the Jupiter conjunction to your ascendant this year is actually going to broaden your horizon. So it can actually be pretty good, right? She says, that's okay, Cap, I can work hard. Yes, my routine job is dissolving. Yeah. It's colorful, but it's going to be exciting. And I think that very different than what you had in this last year. This last year, obviously, you had a 12th house year. And if this was a whole sign chart, you do have Mars retrograde, in your first house at an 8. So like you're coming into the very same retrograde that we actually saw that you were born under. So you might navigate early 2027 a little bit better than most people. But it is going to be highlighting where there is a need to completely reevaluate your home and also your beliefs about where you belong, or what country you should be living in, or what kind of creative work you should be doing. And I think you're really going to be kind of going within and doing a lot of that work in early 2027, and then launching something probably bigger in the spring of 2027. Okay? Hope you like that first house year. I'm in a first house year too. Hopefully it's going to be better than last year, because the 12th house year is definitely for the birds. Thanks for coming back and asking your question. All right, so we've got Asha and then Amanda and then Enchanted. I don't know if Asha is here, but I do have her question from her email. She says, I'm January 16th, 83, 2:21 p.m. in Brooklyn. And she says, interesting how the reading will happen on my birthday. I will be out with friends. Okay, so she's not around. I'll figure out if I can tune in with my friends, or after the celebration, I'll be on the lookout. I'd like to know about what's coming up in my love life. I'm single and looking, and I've been I've been having a lot of suitors come my way. I do have a date set for the weekend with somebody who seems serious. Either way, I'm open to dating new people. All right, so I'm excited to hear that you're open to dating new people. We are looking at this on your birthday, so if I see you later, happy birthday. I hope you had fun and enjoyed your evening. Anytime we're looking at relationships, there's 2 specific places that my eyes go to, and one is going to be your 5th house, or your 5th house cusp and ruler. So this would be Virgo. I read Placidus. Libra's intercepted in your chart. So yeah, sometimes finding people in the love department isn't the easiest. And then we also look at your 7th house, which is Sagittarius. So we're looking at Mercury, we're looking at Jupiter placements. In a nutshell, obviously you've had your fair share of probably some confusing relationships, especially looking at like Neptune in your 7th house and the South Node conjunct Neptune, and maybe a lot of kind of trying to figure out what people want, what they're really saying, where things are going. I think of what has happened in this last year where, you know, you had a Mercury retrograde that was kind of going through your 7th house. So there was a lot of like reevaluation of your relationships in general, and probably a lot of deciding whether or not you want to get out there. Maybe over the last 2 months, it could have brought a lot more people in. Now, what we're going to look at is what's happening with the transiting planets and what's getting kind of triggered in your natal chart. So first things first is if we look at your natal Jupiter, it's at 4 degrees of Sagittarius. So it's in its home sign, and your Jupiter is at a 4. So it can mean that when there's home changes, there's relationship changes. When there's emotional shifts, then suddenly somebody appears. And it is conjunct Uranus, okay? So by theme, we could see with Jupiter and Uranus in your 6th house, well, where do you meet people, right? At the gym, you could meet them when you're walking the dog. You could meet them when you're going to work. You could meet them when you're making time for travel. And Uranus is a little bit of a curveball, but I think that with Jupiter-Uranus conjunct and that sextile to your Venus in the 9th house, it does seem to imply that there is a need to kind of, make time for traveling, education, you know, connecting with people in other places, like that kind of stuff. So there's going to be some outer planet action going on in this chart this year. Down the road in 2026, when you see Uranus go back into Gemini starting in April, it's going to start coming into an opposition with your Jupiter. So if Jupiter is your relationships and Uranus is going through Gemini, naturally you're going to hear a lot of Gemini and Gemini risings are traveling, they're taking courses, they're training, they're meeting people in other places. There's like a lot of like excitement and spontaneity. And I think that if you embrace that with some of the trines to Pluto that's now in your 9th house, it will open the door to meeting new people. And also you might meet people who want to travel and they might want to go places, or they could be like culturally diverse, so they're into like Sagittarius themes. The downside is that, you know, it is an opposition. So it's almost like people can appear, but you're kind of going like, oh, well, I want more spontaneity, or I want to be more detached, or I want to keep an open mind, or I want to kind of see what's out there before I really settle into a specific committed relationship. You're also coming into your Uranus opposition, which I refer to affectionately as your midlife crisis transit. So if I were to look at this as like a whole sign chart with Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune in your 7th, you haven't really had a lot of stability in relationships. Probably a lot of good experience, but not a lot of stability in people who stay. Because that Jupiter, Uranus is like people who can be like really spontaneous, or like they kind of come and go, or there could be long distance relationships. Now the tables have turned. As Uranus goes into Gemini over the next several years, it will oppose your natal Jupiter, which means that you're going to be kind of saying, okay, well, you can come to me, or, you know, I need a little bit of space, or let me decide whether or not I want to settle. Then it will oppose your natal Uranus in 2027 at a 7, which means then you're going to be like, it's much more about the relationship with myself. And like now suddenly you're a little bit more reluctant to commit, and other people might be kind of hovering around trying to see if you're going to like lock something down. What's working in your favor, I think, is right now, Jupiter, your 7th house lord, is in Cancer. It's retrograde. It's going to be retrograde till March. But I do think that when you see like some Mercury-Jupiter conjunctions, that could definitely bring a potential kind of love match. You could also see the same thing like when Mars and Venus are coming together here soon. So let's look at that. So it looks like Mars is going to conjunct your Venus around mid-February. So watch for that, like the 9th, 10th, and the 11th. There could be something kind of going on here in relationship land. And then you're also going to see Mercury come into a trine with Jupiter around the same time. So Mercury's in Pisces, it's trining Jupiter. So that's kind of aligning you and another person. Could be some kind of connection with somebody that you meet through work or your professional life. And then down the road, you want to look at when Mercury's coming into conjunction with Jupiter, because that could be a bigger kind of merger. Mercury will retrograde just short of a Jupiter conjunction. So it's going to get close in late June. It'll retrograde back, and then it's going to come into conjunction with Jupiter right around mid-August of 2026. Now, you could meet anybody in between these times. I would just assume these are going to be like peak periods, especially because you're going to see Mercury and Jupiter sextiling Uranus. Also, trining your ascendant, trining your Jupiter and Uranus. So it does make me feel like there's more opportunities for communication, travel, or like a relationship that's kind of setting up. And then later, we will actually see in 2026, Jupiter, your relationship lord, is going to trine Saturn. And I feel like you're going to have somebody that you're introducing to your friends, or they're getting more kind of socially acclimated with your group, or maybe it's like you're meeting some of their friends and there's like this kind of like merger that you guys are kind of having, where you're kind of like merging your friend groups. Down the road, you know, you will see Jupiter and Saturn kind of trining a bit. So it'll be like kind of August into September, and then you start to lose it. And then I would also pay attention to this period. You're going to see Jupiter and the South Node and Mars all conjunct. And I wonder if it's like you're talking to a partner and they're saying to you, hey, I'm, you know, thinking about moving or relocating, or they could be talking about like, oh, they're going to have a job change, and that could impact where they're living. And you might be going back and forth debating whether or not there's going to be a change in your living situation to accommodate a relationship. You will also have a Venus retrograde in your 5th house. So this is all kind of happening like October into November. And then you will see Mars retrograde in early 2027 with Jupiter. So it's trying to solidify like a home situation with a partner. All trining your 7th house, which is really great for moves or relocations. All trining Saturn, which is great for commitments and being on the same page with what your guys' goals are. So I do see some potential. I could also see when the North Node is coming into conjunction with your Venus, which will be next year, that's also going to be like a really prominent time in like relationship land, because Venus is going to be about that sacred union and connection. Could be a time where you're talking more about a serious commitment in like June and July of 2027. So I do see all of that kind of happening, but you just have to keep in mind that unfortunately, right now, you know, off and on this year, you're dealing with the Uranus opposition. And even with Uranus in your 12th house, like there can be some nervousness revolving around like committing to people. This represents their work and their routines. And I do think Uranus going into your sign in the spring, like trining Pluto, is going to be really good for just having an open mind with dating and not being entirely too attached to people. And I would just reflect on where there's been a lot of inconsistency going on with other people in previous relationship years. Now you're giving yourself a little bit of like breathing room and not feeling forced to have to like commit to any one particular person. Anyway, I hope that that's helpful for you. Definitely let me know how your birthday went. I hope you have a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoy those transits, especially around mid-February. It can look like really great for just starting to get to kind of know someone. All right, so I'm just playing catch up here. There's some people asking questions, so give me a second, guys. Okay, what's up, D-Tablet? 3-card reading, please. Okay, well, we're not doing tarot, so do you want astrology? Let's see, you did a reading for me last week, and my son is here, and I would like to get a reading paid on PayPal. Okay. Well, if you want me to do astrology, let me know. You can send the astrology info, and then I can answer that for you if that's something you want, or we can either refund you, or you can keep a credit to come back for tarot next week. All right, so we have got Amanda, and then Enchanted, and then Be Well. So let's look at Amanda. What's up, Amanda? I saw your note here. Let's see. I don't know if you emailed it to me, if it was on here. I think it was on here. But I did read it. So basically, Amanda's back. She's got her birthday, January 2nd, 85. She's a 29-degree Virgo rising, sun in Capricorn, and moon in Taurus. And she says, so her and her ex, who is a Cancer, ended things suddenly in December after you caught him cheating in October. He's with someone new. I can't seem to get over it. He blocked me and everything last night. Not sure why I care. What do you see for me, him, us, the astrology? I'm heartbroken and feel like I have no hope. Thanks in advance. Well, I can't really say that I'm surprised. And the reason why is because this is like the finale for the late degree Virgo risings, right? So now Saturn has woken up. Neptune has woken up. Both of them are coming into conjunction. You're going to see Neptune, that's going to go into Aries literally at the end of January. So Neptune is the modern day ruler of Pisces, and we know that 29 degrees is critical. So now that Neptune is sitting at 29 degrees, it represents like a super dramatic moment where somebody suddenly vanishes, right? They disappear. That's very kind of like Neptune. And also, Saturn is soon to follow. So we're going to see over the next couple of weeks, Saturn's doing the same thing. So right now, Neptune's at 29. You said that it happened last night, but Last night, the moon was going through Sagittarius, so it's dealing with like you, communications, media, information, learning, right? And it's connected to Jupiter retrograde at a 19. So like reflecting on what is a partner doing? What do they got going on? And then it squares Saturn and Neptune. So whether he knows that you're looking at his stuff or he had a hunch or a suspicion, it doesn't really matter. I think the moon might have triggered that, or he felt the need to be like, okay, I need to be like locked down, or I need to be private, or I want to be invisible. Like I don't want to be seen. Like there's a sense of, like I said, disappearing with that degree. And 29 degrees is that critical kind of like dramatic moment. And probably you being like, oh my God, what's going on? Now I can't see what's happening. Okay, well, in a couple days time, we're going to see Neptune go into Aries, and that'll be happening on the 26th of January, which is a very different vibe. It can mean that there can be some kind of change in terms of like your connection or communication with him. It can also mean that this is a turning point where you're like, I'm giving that up, or if that person wants to do that, or if they want their kind of privacy, like I'm not going to be attached to that anymore. And then Saturn will hit 29 degrees, and it looks like that's going to be happening right around like the 4th of February. And from the 4th of February until what appears to be like the 12th of February, that 8-day window, there's a reset that's going to be kind of going on, right? Like in your relationship life. Pisces is where people run away, they hide, and also we can't really quite see everything, or there is some sense of confusion. Mars or Aries energy is going to be more fresh starts, especially at 0 degrees. So like this is the reset that's coming. With that being ruled by Mars, and Mars is in your 5th house, it means that relationships are dissolving if they're hiding something from you, because Mars is in your whole sign 6th. So like if it's not healthy for you to be connected to him, if you are too emotionally connected with following his life and what he's doing, and it's like an unhealthy habit that's dissolving. It can mean that it's also potentially bringing in a new connection, because Mars is actually technically in your 5th house. So it's giving you the opportunity to be like, whatever, like I'm finally, you know, getting over it about a month from now. And like, you might be open to like dating and meeting new people and wanting to connect and collaborate in like new ways, because Aquarius is going to be more about the future. So you might meet a younger guy, you might start a new hobby. There might be something that you do to kind of replace that urge to want to connect with him. And unless you see something going on with like an aspect to Jupiter, I don't really think there's going to be a lot of communication or connection with somebody from the past. Now, it's possible when you start to see Mercury turn retrograde in February, because you are Mercury, I could see you kind of like checking and being like, oh, did he unblock me? Did something change? Like now is he more open to communicating with me, because this is representing you going like, let me just check and see. I'm not recommending that you do that. I just have a feeling that you will. So you might be on like a good streak for about a month. And then when that retrograde happens, it's going to be retrograding conjuncting Venus. So it's pretty obvious, you know, Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus in your 7th house whole sign may mean that you've moved on, but you're like, okay, is he suddenly single now? Or did he, you know, take down, you know, anything that deals with relationships? Because Venus deals with relationships. Is he suddenly not posting photos with somebody? Is he suddenly now unblocking you? Does he reach out to you? Like those things can happen. But I think that the interesting thing is it looks like right when this retrogrades, it's going to trine Jupiter, which rules relationships, and also the transiting moon. So it's more than just relationship stuff. It's like you going like, I have better or healthier habits in relationships now, or now I feel more in control, or like I quite frankly don't care what he's doing. And it will give you the opportunity to kind of get back into relationships and kind of hit reset. And then it will be trining Jupiter. So you're going to see Mercury and Jupiter trine right around the 7th and the 8th of March. So I wonder, is there a new person that comes in? It is a Kazemi, so I would be cautious. I'd caution you against like just reconnecting with him and being like, oh, well, now that he's single, like, you know, do you want to talk to him and open up the door? Sometimes with like the retrogrades, it's about getting, you know, like peace of mind with like, oh, well, even if he did, you know, get out of that relationship, it doesn't matter. I don't want to connect with him in that way. And finally getting closure and being open to whoever new is kind of coming into your life. And especially with like Saturn requiring you to get more serious about your romantic relationships, as it's tied to your 5th house. And then Neptune is basically saying it needs to be people who can like show up and be authentic and like honest, and like people who are really being more assertive and like showing you that they want to kind of connect and commit with you. Right around the same time that you have Venus and Mars kind of conjuncting, you're having your Mars return. So that's also saying there's about to be a change in a relationship, and being able to kind of go deeper and get a little bit more clarity on what it is that you want in a partnership, and if you can like trust being with another person again, you know? I mean, I remember looking at his chart just with like the Sag rising, knowing that he's going to have Uranus kind of going in and out of his whole sign 7th house. Like he's not going to have a lot of stability in relationships. You know what I'm saying? Like there's definitely going to be a sense of a lot of either going back and forth between two people, or being on and off, or back and forth. And especially when it comes to communication. So it doesn't really matter who he's with. You may see that he's like, you know, having static with her, and then he unblocks you, and then he's trying to talk to you. And like, there's nothing there that's saying he's going to stay. He's going to keep seeing blow up situations in relationships because of Uranus. Well, what does Uranus rule if he's a Sag rising? His 3rd house. What is his 3rd house? His fingers, who he's texting, what he's looking at, who he's calling, who he's talking to. And there will be constant back and forth static over, you know, his boundaries when it comes to social media. I think that if he made the decision to block you, I would see that as like a blessing in disguise. Like a lot of the Saturn, Neptune, and Pisces stuff is like things that are blessing in disguise, and like people that dissolve or like remove themselves from situations, but that's because something else is going to be kind of coming in. Like that's just my opinion. She says, yes, it's been a nightmare. Yeah, I also think that the other focus is, you know, what retrogrades are trying to do is they're trying to shake everything out. So even if you're trying to check intermittently for the next 2 months, being like, what is he doing? What is he doing? What is he doing? It's not good for you, because it's opposing your ascendant. And Virgo at 29 degrees is like, how can I fix it? What's wrong with me? Like, what did I do wrong? Like, how can I find a way to rectify the situation? Like, why won't you just talk to me? Like, just tell me what's going on. And the Pisces energy is going to react to that, and it's going to project, and it's going to allow you to feel like, well, it is you, or you are the problem. And probably just with him blocking you, you know, I mean, I could see why maybe that you would freak out, but Saturn is boundaries, Neptune is visibility. So clearly he's wanting to hide something. So like, let's play a psychological detective here. If he's moved on, and if he's in a new relationship, and he is wanting to be wholeheartedly committed and devoted to that person, even though you guys broke up 2 months ago and he cheated, okay, whatever, he's committed to this new person. Why should he give a fuck what you see? That's just what I would think about. Why would he care what you see? Unless he knew that if you saw what was going on, and that the person who he was either cheating with, he's with, or that he's moving on to new people, and he's like playing house with some other woman, would potentially destroy, because 29 degrees is about a destroyer energy, any potential future with you. So he doesn't want there to be any evidence. He wants it to all be something that you cannot see. So if you decide when he comes back that you want to be like, oh, well, I saw you with this girl, that girl, doing this, doing that, that's going to be used against him. He's not going to be able to play the victim, right? And Saturn, Neptune going into Aries, his partners have to take accountability, 7th house, for their actions, for the things that they're doing. It's the Lord of Karma. So even if you don't see what's going on right now, you should recognize and realize, number one, he cheated on you. Anything else he does beyond that point, it does not matter. Number two, he wants to hide this because he wants to probably have the ability to come back, and he would like you to think that it's your fault and you did something wrong, so he could use that as leverage. Don't play the games, right? And the beautiful thing is you're just about done. Like right about the time that you get to April, there's no more of this. I think that I would be really opening up to the possibility of meeting somebody who could be a lot more mature with Saturn now in Aries, somebody who is going to, you know, take action, and when they say something, they mean it, and like they will be more than happy to kind of fill in the gaps where somebody else probably couldn't. And I also think that, you know, probably how this is going to manifest is like you going, you know what, I really want partnership, but I want partnership with somebody who is like a stand-up guy and somebody who's going to be more masculine. Because Aries is more masculine, it's going to be more about action. It's going to be more about also this kind of like, it's kind of like a, I don't know, it's kind of like a warrior energy. I feel like Saturn and Neptune is like, you know, like hot dudes that do yoga, or like, you know, men who have like a background maybe in the military, but they're also like into playing music, or they're open to spirituality, like those kinds of things. So you're not going to be dealing with this Pisces energy of people who want to cry the blues and then go MIA and then like, you know, blame everybody except for themselves. It's a very different energy. So it'll probably take you until that like mid-February through March to kind of get some of this stuff out of your system. But I want you to just remember, there is a reason why he doesn't want you to see what he's doing. And that tells you that he's already assuming that the door is open. And I would say, no, close the door. Don't leave the door open. You know, you've seen everything that you need to see already. Whatever he does beyond that, that's on him. And like, if anything, feel bad for the woman that he's with, because men who act like that are just going to go to another relationship and they're going to carry that baggage over. And like the karma is going to be hitting, you know, partnerships in a very big way. You may see when Saturn or Neptune retrograde in your 7th that they come back, right? And they're like, I'm sorry, I realized I was wrong. I should have done this. I should have done that. And I would have been like, yeah, you should have, like, you know, best of luck to you, because there may be some accountability down the road. But still, that Sag rising with Uranus transits, there's not going to be a lot of stability, you know, and there's still going to be a lot of connection and communication with people online. You have to ask yourself if you're going to be able to trust him, knowing that that's something that he does. Probably not, right? I have been trying to blame myself. I just joined a gym this week. Maybe I'll meet someone soon. Yeah, well, knowing that you're getting ready to have like retrogrades in the 5th house and you're getting ready to have an eclipse on your Venus. The eclipse on your Venus in mid-February is a great time to be joining a new gym and doing something where you're investing in your health. And it could also potentially bring some like love connections here, right? All right, so hopefully that's helpful for you, Amanda. I know it's a difficult one, but you're going to feel very differently in April. All right, who do I have next? I've got Enchanted and then Be Well. You're welcome. D Tibet 76. If you want me to do an astrology reading, you need to send the birth details for the person that you have a question about. So I need the time, date of birth, and the location. So send me his birthday, the time he was born, and the location and your question, and then I can look at the astrology for you. All right, let's look at Enchanted and then Be Well. Also, readings are now closed. So to those of you guys who got in, thank you for your patience. I'm going to do a quick peep and see. You know what? Let me check my phone because PayPal is not behaving. I want to make sure I don't miss anyone. Okay, so I've got Elizabeth, Corey, Diana, Kyle, Amanda Ridgway. So I think, did you want Sinistry too? I'm not sure what you wanted because I saw you join the memberships and then you did that. So let me know. And then I've got Haley. So I will add those as we kind of get to the end there. Okay, thanks, Steve. I'll add you to my list, okay? So I'll do that after Be Well. All right, let's take Enchanted. What's up, Enchanted? Happy almost birthday. Aries rising, Sun in Aquarius, Mars in Aquarius. Man, your chart is getting lit up, right? Eclipse near your Sun, Saturn, Neptune on your Ascendant, Pluto on your Mars. Holy cow. All right, let's go and take a look at what's going on with Enchanted's questions. All right, Enchanted says, let's see. I saw your question earlier, but now I'm trying to find it here. Where is it? There we go. Cashing in, how does my birthday look like with the eclipse? Will it affect it? All right. I was wondering how it'll affect my birthday. Well, it's going to be, you may have that kind of eclipse energy around, I mean, obviously your solar return, but let's go and look. So your birthday is going to be when the sun hits a 20. So your solar return looks like it's probably going to be sometime around the 8th. And then the solar eclipse on the 17th is within range of your sun. This one is important because it's within 8 degrees, but also the one that we're going to have in August is going to be at 20 degrees, the solar eclipse in Leo. That'll oppose your sun exactly. So the eclipses are speaking very personally to you this year. It's very obvious. Anyway, when we see the solar eclipse come in, it's going to plant a new seed. Okay, so you know I use Placidus, I don't use whole sign. So you'll hear as in Aries, like it's about your community, it's about your goals, it's about your networks. Maybe. I mean, I think it's going to be more about what you're kind of building and working on behind the scenes. Solar eclipses prompt some kind of like catalyst for change. So it'll plant that seed. You've got about 6 to 18 months that you'll see that unfold. To me, it looks like with this solar eclipse, you know, so close to your sun, it's about tapping into like your creative desires and like untapped into self-expression. Obviously, it's at a 28, so it's also going to be about emotions, and it might be a time where you're like literally or figuratively kind of like cleaning house or cleaning out closets or cleaning out, you know, things emotionally that you've been kind of holding on to. And it is going to be squaring Uranus and Taurus. So it's going to represent all of this like subconscious will or manifestation or spiritual practices or works for you to manifest more wealth, for you to manifest new desires, new stability, new security, like physical things. So this is where the intangible becomes physical. So I would recommend around the time of your birthday or the solar eclipse that you do a vision board. I also think that, you know, some of the other aspects that it's making in your chart is actually pretty good. This is sextiling your natal Chiron and your South Node. So it's like where you're starting to feel like you're a part of a tribe or a community or a new group of friends where you feel seen and you feel inspired and you're like with people who feel like kindred spirits, right? And then also this is going to be trining your North Node in Libra, opening the door to bringing in clients, bringing in new partnerships, bringing in new offerings, new services. And you're also going to see that this is going to be sextiling your natal South Node. So it's clearing the way of feeling like you have to be alone or isolated or that you have to do everything by yourself. Perhaps maybe it's going to help you shed old skin. So it's also about this like rebirth energy, which I think is perfect for being an Aquarius sun, because having the solar eclipse in your sign will have some big changes when it comes to your relationship to yourself, because we know the sun has that association with your 7th sign to you, Leo. But I think this is more about the emotional and the spiritual side of things. I think it could also be about your sleep habits and how you're making some changes to better support the nervous system. Maybe you are intuitively feeling guided to make changes with what you're eating or how you're spending money or what you're purchasing. And you will see that this will manifest as like really trying to push for kind of innovating what you deem valuable. Now that could be, you know, what you're investing in, what products you're buying, what companies you're supporting, but it could also mean that it's kind of very nicely with your chart. I do think that it'll take some time to see this kind of manifest. And what you'll probably find is when Mars hits 28 degrees, there's going to be a reactivation of this eclipse, and Mars is your chart ruler. So Mars is going to hit 28 degrees here, like around February 28th and 29th. And that's probably when you're like, okay, now I know what the goal is. I'm going after it. And then down the road, when you have the North Node over the summer hitting this degree, you're also going to see, like, I would go back to that vision board and be like, oh my gosh, these are all the things that I put on my vision board, you know, and you'll be looking at this in August and also September. And you'll realize like a lot of the things that you were, you know, praying for or manifesting or visualizing is now starting to come into a reality in the fall. So it looks like it won't hit 28 until like, okay, so where this was 28, this is 20, but it's still opposing your sun. So you've got 2 eclipses that are very personal for you throughout this next year. Yeah, light at the other side of the tunnel for sure. You have a lot to be celebrating in 2026. You no longer have Mars that's conjunct your Pluto, you know, after about a month and a half from now. You no longer have Pluto squaring your moon, creating a lot of like emotional discord and like pressure around your home and relationships. You are now going to be seeing Saturn crossing into your sign, which I think you're going to see is like a burst of energy from February to April to like kind of rework something about your status or your career, or you're going to be feeling like you want to get up and go and you want to make things happen. And even though Venus-Saturn transits can be difficult, Saturn is going to hit your Venus, and it is going to really bring the opportunity for like love or like new relationships into your life. Work collaborations too, because Venus is at a 6. So I think that it'll definitely bring in some like opportunities to collaborate with like-minded people in your field. But it can also bring you some kind of like wealth or new refined beauty. So that'll be sextiling, obviously, Pluto, and then we'll see Uranus sextiling Venus and Saturn and Neptune on the other side of that as well, that like bisextile that's going to be happening. So things really start to kind of like open up, especially for Aries and Aries risings, like over the summertime. Jupiter coming into a trine with Saturn in your first house is going to bring more creativity, opportunities for love, self-expression, growth with your business. And obviously the opposition to your sun also brings in the opportunity to connect with new people as well. So it's almost like all of that immense pressure that you have been under is now starting to kind of release. With that being said, like 0 degrees of the cardinal signs are the most potent degrees of the zodiac. So while Saturn and Neptune are sitting conjunct that degree, so pretty much from the end of January when Neptune hits it, you're going to be really tapping into like, oh, there is some big change coming. And then Saturn's going to hit it, and it's going to be like, I got to get serious about this change. And then Mars is going to hit this on your ascendant. And then you're going to be like, it's go time. And that's pretty much going to be like, I would say the end of March until like April is when you're really starting to kind of get your groove. But it's going to feel like there's a lot of things that are kind of like getting like, like that are being removed. And Saturn can sometimes make us like strip everything away that we don't need. So you may find that, you know, you're not eating a certain way, you're not dressing a certain way, maybe you're donating things, you're giving things away, you're like, oh, I need less things, like I just want more freedom. So that way you have like the freedom to move or travel. So you can use these transits, I think, pretty much from the end of January until like the eclipse in February to start decluttering, donating stuff, giving things away, preparing to kind of move to this next phase of your life. And it can be really beneficial if you're like moving, or if you're moving in or out of somewhere. But you're probably going to feel like a completely different person, I think, come the summertime when you start to see the full effects of that Aquarius solar eclipse come in, especially because I don't know if you've looked at the full moon in Aquarius that's going to happen this year. So this will be the full moon that is kind of concluding or completing everything that is about to get launched. But the full moon in 2026 is going to be conjunct Pluto. So right here, so in July 29th, 2026, the full moon at 6 degrees is going to be right on top of your Mars with Pluto. So what is that bringing you? Probably a wealth of new friends, new community. Like there's like a really cool energy that's kind of syncing up with some of the sextiles and also some of the trines to your own Pluto, oppositions to Jupiter. I think it's going to be really, really, really big. It's big for like wishes. So make sure you set intentions and like wishes that are kind of connected to that vision board. Put it somewhere in your bedroom that you're going to see all the time, and then be all right, if you guys can see me, let me know so that way I know that that we're back. Sorry, we're having issues with the internet, guys. I apologize. All right, so if you guys are still here, don't worry, I didn't go anywhere. I'm just plugging in charts for you guys. All right, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so I'm just pulling up some stuff, looking at Be Well, because I got to add her in. And let's see, so she's got 2:15 a.m. All right. Okay, so we're going to take Be Well, and then after that we will take D. So let's look at her chart and her question. So Be Well says, sign up for membership, would like Sinistry. I'm 8/15/80 at 8:39 p.m. and that was in Baton Rouge. And then your partner is August 23rd, 76, and that was in Grand Rapids, Michigan at 2:15 a.m. Okay, cool, thank you. Did you have any specific questions or anything, Be Well? Sent super chat, cool, got that. My questions are, we reconnected at Christmas after many years. I could never forget him. Should I let go? What's next for me in love? Why am I attracted to him? Is it a mother wound? Okay. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, so let's see what's going on. Well, number one, you're a Pisces rising. You've got the sun in Leo. You've got all these planets in Libra. He's a Cancer rising, and he's got his sun in Virgo. Similar planets kind of in Virgo with those conjunctions, North Node, Moon. All right, so my thought is this. Look, you're obviously still dealing with South Node transits that are moving through your 7th house. So it's not just all synastry. It manifested, I think, as him because he's got planets there. But if you look at your transits, the South Node has been in conjunction to your Jupiter. So it's about you reconnecting with someone to the past. That's number one. Number two, the South Node's also been in conjunction to Juno. So it's highlighting where there's opportunities or windows of connecting with people who could be potential partners or coming in. Now you're losing that because the South Node's going away from it. And then if we look at your natal Mercury, which is the ruler of your 7th house, Mercury is in Leo. So you're also seeing a lot of planets that are starting to go through Aquarius opposing Mercury, and there's some eclipse energy that's going to come up. So it's a lot of like, do I hold on to him? Do I let him go? To be honest with you, knowing that Jupiter is going to hit Mercury like later in the summer and Saturn's going to trine it, I feel like there's some potential here just for relationships in general. But for him, he seems very, very, very faintly familiar. And I think a lot of this is because you've got Jupiter and Venus that have been in conjunction. So it's bringing in like a true love. Jupiter is also sextiling Jupiter, so it's opening the door to romance and relationships with people from the past. And you've got Jupiter that is starting to sextile Saturn, which could bring more serious commitment in relationships. Now for him, I mean, he's a Cancer rising. So he's had all these transits that have been going through his 7th house. There was a full moon that was in Cancer opposing all of this, which represented this kind of being apart and coming together energy. And Saturn rules his relationships, and he's got Saturn in Leo. So it is kind of symbolizing over this next year, while Jupiter is coming into conjunction with his moon, that there's more confidence, more money, more opportunities for family. And then Jupiter and Saturn are going to align, which can mean that there is like a new commitment in a relationship. He has a ton of planets like you that are in Virgo. So let's look at the synastry together and flip this around. He's on the outside. Okay, so I'm looking at, well, are there planets that are in the 5th of romance? Check. His moon's there. Are there planets in the 7th house of relationships? Check. He's got his Venus right on top of your Jupiter. I love that aspect. He's got his Mercury, your 7th house lord, conjunct your Saturn, so serious conversations. He's got his Mars conjunct your Saturn, which is probably not the easiest because there's probably been a need for you to kind of like issue boundaries or what works or doesn't work in relationships. And maybe there's been some pushback. And then he's got Pluto that is very close to your natal Pluto, Mars, and Moon, which is like really intense, passionate, sexy, connected to the 8th house of like regeneration and rebirth. So the fact that he's got such a heavy presence in your 7th house makes me feel like, yeah, he's coming back around because maybe there's something where, you know, there is either a better opportunity for you guys to connect, or he feels the need that to kind of clear the air, and maybe there was like a misconnection or a missed opportunity and he wants to see if you guys can actually like try again. How do you feel about having Saturn conjunct your guys' Mercuries? Because he's got Saturn on your Mercury, he's got Mercury on your Saturn. You know, talk to me a little bit about what the communication is like with you guys. Do you feel like you can talk about serious feelings and things in regards to relationships and stuff pretty easily? Or do you feel like there is a little bit of like a challenge when it comes to communicating? Because that's something I think about. When you talk about synastry, people are like, oh, what's going on in my 5th and my 7th house? Or like, do we have 8th house contacts? Or, you know, do we have Mars and Venus in aspect? And like, okay, kind of. I mean, your Mars is in Libra, and it looks like it is not seeing his Venus. Your Venus is in Cancer, and it is sextiling his Sun. It's a little wide, but it is by sign sextiling his Venus. And his Mars is starting to come into a square with your Venus. So I could say your Mars and Venuses do see each other to some extent. I think you guys can be very similar because you have a lot of planets that are in the same signs. And I think that he is kind of like the embodiment of like that very kind of Virgoan kind of energy that you bring in. I mean, you're going to love anything that's going to have this much Virgo. Maybe not so much the Mars, but definitely the Sun, the Venus, and the Mercury. But it's karmic because he's got planets that are conjunct your Saturn. It's also karmic because he's got Saturn conjunct your Mercury, which means he needed to go heal some stuff before he was ready to kind of come back around and be like, okay, I've worked through my stuff, now I'm healed, right? I do think, and I would say this to any Pisces rising, like when I zoom out, I know that there was a solar eclipse that happened in September in your 7th house, which happened right on top of your Saturn and his Mercury Mars. And now it's like the finale that's coming up because we're getting ready to see that there is going to be a full moon lunar eclipse that's going to be in Virgo at the beginning of March. That is going to symbolize some major definitive turning point where it's like, are we doing this thing or not? And then when we flip the charts around, we look at him with the Cancer rising. You have Venus on his ascendant. So like men like women that have Venus in their ascendant sign because you guys just look good together. You can actually improve the way that he looks and the way that he's dressing. And it's like a very kind of like nurturing, mothery kind of like bond. And you have Ceres on his ascendant too. So he probably could have or should have said something to you like, wow, like I missed you so much. Or like I thought about you a lot. Or like I was really sad that we disconnected. Because Ceres can kind of talk about longing and like where something is taken away from us for like a season of our life. And then when it comes back in, we feel like everything now can like regrow. It can also mean that you just kind of like baby him and like he likes that. Your Mercury's on his Saturn in his 2nd house. So there's like serious conversations about values when it comes to love and dating. And you guys have Sun that's close to each other's Sun. Your Jupiter sits conjunct his Venus. So you expand everything when it comes to like home and family related things. I think Jupiter and Venus and like Juno and Venus conjunct can be really good for long-term marital relationships. And I think Saturn being in the 4th house conjunct his Mars does make me feel like there can be some challenges in terms of communicating like what your home and family like needs are. We communicate well but lack boundaries. Yeah, so like with both of you guys having Mercury and Mars, Mercury and Saturn conjunct each other, like I think the communication needs to be more about like logical, practical steps in the relationship and what you're doing and like having a defined plan. And then your moon sits very close to his natal Uranus and like, you know, if you have somebody who has the moon in the 5th house, like that's like a love affair. Like that's somebody who you're like, oh, I always was like in love with that person. So your moon's in his 5th house and it's very close to his natal Uranus and his north node. You don't have any planets in his 7th, but the 5th house, the 4th house is more about like the home and like the kind of relationship that we have. And I think really where you're both going to get tested is going to be in the communication department because we're going to see later this year, Jupiter goes into Leo. So it's really highlighting where there's going to be a lot of passion and kind of drama and like, how do we expand with all of that Jupiter energy? How do we find ways to work together? And it's going to be going through your 7th house pretty soon next year. So the end of next year, going into 2028, you'll see Jupiter hanging out in your 7th house. And I think there needs to be conversations regarding those things. Really, I mean, you can look at the synastry, but if you're wondering what's going to happen, I think that I would be watching your chart when you have the lunar eclipse on your descendant right here on March 3rd, because that's going to represent some kind of like decision being made about a potential relationship. Mercury will retrograde, which basically means that they're going to be checking in with you, being like, well, what do you think? Do you want to do this? And like, you're going to need some time to kind of think about whether or not this is the path that you want to move forward. Certainly with trines to Jupiter, it does open up, you know, to love and like further commitment and like romance and a relationship kind of evolving. But I do think that you're going to have to really take some time to reassess exactly how you want to do this so you're not repeating some of the same patterns that you had the last time that you guys were together. And for him, it's going to be showing that this is going to be a full moon that's going to be happening conjunct his Venus with the South Node. So he was supposed to reconnect with a woman from the past that was also coming. But this is also highlighting the opposition to the ruler, which is going retrograde in the 10th. Like, do you guys live in 2 different places? Do you not live near each other? Like, is there a need to kind of restructure his life so that way he's getting a little bit more serious about either his professional life or his goals or the direction he's going in so he could actually fully be present in a relationship and like make somebody feel like they're like cared for or that, you know, they're going to be responsible enough to kind of be with them, because that's something that I would think about. I know a lot of Cancers and Cancer risings with Saturn Neptune going into Aries, they're going to want to change their status. So it can mean that, you know, it's possible that suddenly now he wants to be in a relationship and he didn't before, or, you know, now all of a sudden he feels inspired because he wants to be, you know, with you, that now he wants to take his career more seriously, or he wants to be seen as somebody who's like mature or like more responsible or an adult. She said, yes, he told me he knew we'd meet again. Well, I mean, there is a lot of familiarity here. You may not have aspects too close to each other's south nodes, but I do think that some of the north node aspects do talk about like reconnecting and coming back together in the future. But I would be cautious knowing that you have this Mars retrograde that's going to be coming up later in the year. So you're going to see Mars that's going to go into Virgo briefly here. And then it's going to retrograde. So Mars is going to represent what you're holding on to, what you're invested in, what you're working towards, and then it's going to lose momentum and it's going to retrograde conjunct Jupiter. So even if like there is a cooling off period at the end of the year or a reevaluation, Mars retrograde conjunct Jupiter means he's going to come back to you and he's going to be like, hey, this is what I'm thinking, or this is where I've been afraid, or this is what I'm working out. And obviously, yeah, it's happening in Leo. So for like a lot of like Virgos, because he's barely a Virgo sun, it's clearing out any like inhibitions that he has with love or vulnerability. So this will still be like a turning point, but I do think that you can feel your way through this until you get to the eclipse in March and then make a decision as to whether or not you see yourselves moving forward. He's definitely going to have to step it up a bit in this next year. And I really think that as long as you have better communication about your boundaries, I think you can be good. And like in many ways, you guys can actually really help each other. Watching Jupiter come into conjunction with Mercury, like it means that you guys can help each other with healthier habits in love and relationships. And there could be like a sense of bringing out the best in each other and really focusing on like changes in your work or your health and like lifestyle habits. And maybe it's about getting on the same page with your schedule too and your routine. So that way you're really carving out time to really feel like you can, you know, be together, right? But yeah, you definitely get a stamp of approval, but he's going to have to step it up in this next year. So be paying attention to what's coming up for you intuitively in March before you make any bigger decisions. And then there's still a reevaluation point in early 2027. Not surprised though, not surprised. Really interesting that you're having those South Node transits. When did he come back? I know you said you spent Christmas with him, but it looks like the South Node hit your Jupiter. And this is a once in an 18-year transit, by the way. So it looks like that was happening right around early December. So I don't know if you ran into him or if you guys started talking, but that's right when it got kind of triggered right here. The timing of that, that's amazing. All right, we're gonna be moving on. We've got, I think D, he travels all summer. Oh, so there will be a separation and then a reconnection. Well, there you go. All right, so we're going to take D. I think there was a little bit of confusion. Was it tarot? Was it astrology? What is it going to be? And I think you actually sent that to me. So let me pull that up really quick, D, so I can take a look at it. Thanks for your patience. Where did you send it? Let's see. You got it? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Oh, I see it. July 22nd, 85. Okay. And I know this was for another person. Forgive me, I don't remember the name. Josiah. Okay. July 22nd, 85. 3:13 p.m. in Apple Valley. All right, so this is for Josiah, Scorpio rising. Let's see, Scorpio rising, Sun in Leo, Moon in Libra. All right, well, let's take a look and let's see. So she says, rooting for my son, will be leaving for job in 7 hours away from his kids, girlfriend, and me. How long will he be away? And then she says, astrology tonight. Okay, got that. All right, got that. Apologies, I'm having to go through the chart to make sure I've got all the information. Okay. All right, so leaving away for work. Why is this happening? Well, here's the deal. The sun for a Scorpio rising, whole sign, rules the career, okay? So you could suggest, because Pluto is now, and has been for this last year, there's been this ongoing pressure with Pluto in opposition to the Sun to make some big changes in regards to the career, because he's Pluto. So off and on all year this has happened. You also saw that this was kind of coming up also at like the beginning of 2025, where there was like a Mars retrograde that was opposing Pluto. So it could have been a lot of back and forth at work or trying to figure out what direction he was going to go in. Now it's coming in back into opposition. So this is the final opposition, and you're going to see Venus, which represents his wife or partner, the Sun, which is going to represent, I think, his children, and Mars, which is going to represent him needing to get on the road, all in opposition to his Sun. So he's having to be away. When could he come back home potentially? I contacted him before. Oh, okay, gotcha. Sorry, I'm going back and forth between two people. When could he come back? Maybe when Mars is coming back into the 4th house. So he's Mars and Pluto. Pluto's no longer opposing the Sun. So you could see around the time of the eclipse, around March the 3rd, which would be almost relieving him of any work or responsibility. And then the ruler is Mercury. Mercury's going to retrograde in the 4th house, where he can go back to reconnect with his children, Pisces, whole sign 5th, and his mother, 4th house. All ruled by Jupiter, and it's trining Jupiter. So it's saying it's like he has to go away to make the money. He's emotional about it. He doesn't want to go through these changes. He knows that he has to do it. So if he's getting ready to leave now, I'd be looking at somewhere around early March that there would be a return. The other thing that's interesting is all this is sextiling Uranus, so it's also saying that it may actually improve some of the relationships that he has with his mom, with his children, particularly if he's got a first and a second child, and also with a partner if he's in a relationship. But it's almost like this is the new normal, right? So you're going to see for Scorpio rising, you know, there's about to be a solar eclipse in Aquarius in the 4th house, and so they're either suddenly dramatically going through some big change when it comes to their home or their living situation, and they're kind of initiating that. And it is about some communal family situation, Aquarius. And you'll see over the next 6 to 18 months that there's going to be periods of him probably coming and going, or he's working because he's trying to support family. So that way he can come home and make some bigger changes and like think about where he wants to live in the long term, or if he wants to improve where he's living, or if he's wanting to move or buy property. Or any of those things. Now, the other thing that I noticed about this solar eclipse is that it's technically in his 3rd. So it's like his chart's registering as that of like a Sagittarius rising, where they're going to have these eclipses, and then suddenly they're like, oh, I'm going on a road trip, or I'm moving, or, you know, there's a need to be communicating more, kind of being on the road. And I think that he'll be able to do that because Mars is going to be trining his Venus. So he'll be able to communicate at least with a partner, or be able to send some kind of support or some love from the road. And then you'll see that unfold over about a 6-month time. And then the South Node is going to come into conjunction with his midheaven. So I think mid-March it might relieve him of a job, and he might have a break and he can come back. But there's still a lot of potential changes with his work or his work schedule. And I see that when like Mercury is coming into conjunction with Saturn and Mars. So about April 20th, I would say April 19th, maybe through like the 25th. That can indicate he's like really busy and he's on the road. It's trining his Sun, so I think it'll be good for him. And then you're also going to see Jupiter come into conjunction with his Mars later in the summer, which is going to be really good for money. So like mid-June, Jupiter and Venus hitting his Mars, like he's going to make more money. It's going to help support his family. It's going to change his financial situation. Then Jupiter's going to sit on his Sun, and then he's going to have more kind of opportunities for career growth and development. He may be traveling more for work too in July, really all the way maybe through about August. And then he's going to see a solar eclipse in his 9th house, which is going to be here in mid-August, which will start to come into an opposition with his Jupiter. So I don't know if he's going to be going away, coming back, going away, coming back. That's kind of the feeling that I get. And it might be for like several weeks to like a month or two at a time. And there's going to be a lot of back and forth until the end of summer. And then it looks like he's going to be contemplating whether or not he's going to be making like a bigger job or a career change from December of 2026 until what appears to be about March, April of 2027. And it looks like he would be wanting to make a change because he's going to want something that's either going to have a more consistent schedule, or he's going to know that it's going to be worth the amount of energy and the time that he's putting into it. Really interesting stuff. It's kind of like backwards because, you know, you have the South Node spinning through your 10th house of career as a Scorpio rising. So you're like, well, I'm not really wanting to work. You know, North Node and Pluto's at the bottom of the chart. It's like, I want to be home. I want to be dealing with stuff on the home front. But the North Node eclipse, the South Node eclipses and Jupiter going into your 10th house will give you several opportunities to go back to a job for intermittent periods and actually make a little bit better income because Jupiter rules your money. So watch for that pretty much now through March. You'll see another one that's going to be about June through August. And then December through April is like a reevaluation if he wants to kind of commit to this new lifestyle and like the work that he's going to be doing. It does look lucrative, but between Saturn and Neptune in opposition to his moon, I mean, he was going to be away from his mom, he's going to be away from his kids. And then watching Pluto in opposition to his sun, he had to make some pretty dramatic changes in what, you know, needed to happen around the home front, and he had to really focus on the changes with his career. Perhaps prompting him to also start thinking about where is it that he wants to actually call home, or is he going to be staying in one location, or does he need to be changing something about like the home dynamic, especially if there is communal things going on, like mom's helping take care of kids, or, you know, wife's kind of helping, you know, take care of mom. Like he's really making the necessary decisions he has to make, even though it's really uncomfortable, to be able to kind of better support his family. And it's going to help kind of establish the stability, like on the home front that he really needs. And all this last year, Pluto's been in opposition to his sun. So it has not been easy, but he's kind of coming out the other side. And I feel like if he can make it this stretch pretty much now through March, he'll get a break, and then he's going to reassess in April and probably trying to find like a schedule that's going to work for him that is going to also work for his family, right? Hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight. Looks like it's going to be good on the career front, though. I think you're going to be quite surprised how much work is expanding over the summertime. All right, so who else do we have here? Do we have anybody else that's connected to the level 4? I don't think so. All right, so for everybody else who's been waiting, Iram, Mandavi, Alyssa, Corey, Estella, I've got a private reading. We've got Aaron, we've got Tawny. If you hear your name, then that means that you are on my list. Did I say Corey? I think I got Corey on there. Yeah. And then there was somebody who was asking if I got them or not. I think that was the feral writer. You'll have to remind me. But if you asked for your name to be private, it will be private. But I do have, yes, Jess, you're on there. Jess Collins. All right, so let's go ahead and get on with the show. We're going to take Aram and then Mandavi and then Sunny Side Up. And is there anybody else that popped in and joined? I saw Junie B. Jones said they wanted to get in there. Now I'm just seeing it. Can you send me your birth information so I can put you in there? And yes, you get the daily horoscopes if you're level 4. You do. Junie B., I just saw your message. Sorry, I'm kind of going back and forth. Knock the nip. Hold on a second. I don't see you in here. Would it be under your name? It usually just posts my email. I'm not seeing you in here. When did you send it? Did you get a transaction number? Let me just double check because sometimes PayPal is acting kind of crazy. Kyle, you're in here too. Yeah, I see you guys. So pretty much anything off after Aaron. We've got a couple more people here, so I got to put them in. Give me 1 second. Sorry, guys. PayPal's got a bit of like a delay. Aaron, Sinistry got that. Corey. Is there 2 Corys in here? Haley. I got you guys. Okay, there's 2 Corys in here? All right, cool. Just want to make sure I'm not crazy. Corey and Corey. Okay. Junie. Let me add you in there really quick, Junie. May 7th, 96. My question is, any predictions for my solar return? Well, that depends on where you currently live. So, are you still in Valencia? So, Ira, Mandavi, and Sunny Side Up, you guys are all on deck. I'll take you guys next. So, Junie's a Virgo rising, Sun in Taurus, Moon in Capricorn. Mercury is your ruler. Well, you've been having a lot of fun with Uranus conjunct your Mercury, huh? It's a lot of like, where am I going? What do I believe in? What am I doing? And then some big changes that are going to be coming for your career when you see Uranus go back into Gemini. Especially at a 1, it means that you're going to be initiating something new. So I don't know if you're training or if you're learning something or getting certified, or you're just shifting your belief and your philosophy about money, but that's about to create some pretty big breakthroughs in your career. Right now, it's retrograding over your Mercury. So this represents your mind and your body. So when you see it come back and hit your Mercury again, like March, April, and then in April going into May, that's when you start to see a clearing and like new opportunities emerge in your professional life. So that's big, especially as the North and the South Node are starting to come into a square with Uranus. That's pretty prominent. The other thing is obviously, you know, you're in your Saturn's return this year, boo-boo. So Saturn's coming back to where Saturn was when you were born. You got a little bit of like a taste of it in 2025 when Saturn went into Aries and then it retrograded back. But this is a pretty big deal. So in your chart, Saturn rules your 5th house of dating, romance, relationships, taking chances, self-employment. It's also directly connected to your health and your habits. So at a 3, it means that you're doing a lot of research this year. You're really into self-development, self-transformation, psychological transformation, you know, and also kind of combating or tackling anything that's kind of like with debt, right? Or anything that deals with borrowing money, loans, any of that stuff. So be mindful of some of those things that are coming up. And Saturn and Neptune are going to be sitting in conjunction to your Saturn. So not only are you going to have Saturn conjunct your Saturn, where your Saturn return is really starting to kick into overdrive here, right in mid-March, but then Neptune's going to come up on it too, and it's going to hit it also at a 3, and that'll be in April. So you're not just having a Saturn transit, you're having a Saturn and a Neptune transit. Honestly, I think it's clearing any blockages that you have in terms of dating, because it's connected to your 5th house and any insecurities that you have about vulnerability and where you maybe shy away from being vulnerable and being able to communicate and talk to people about your feelings, or any fears that you have about losing your identity in a relationship. She says, as far as the Saturn return, I tried to pay attention to what was happening, but I feel like nothing happened, so it was hard to tell what was coming up. Well, at a 3, it's a Gemini energy. So the darker side of this could mean you could start to see where negative self-talk, worry, anxiety, stress, you know, and kind of like this mental kind of like rigidness that keeps coming up can actually make you feel like war-torn and kind of like beat up. Also, you know, Saturn is not very strong in Aries. It has this energy of not knowing how to be more assertive or not knowing how to create boundaries. Maybe it's going to be about kind of communicating with people what you need for security in romantic relationships. Saturn also is connected to your 6th house of health. So you're going to see the impact of like your physical health and habits and how like that plays a huge role in your psychological health. Could also be about detoxing and clearing things out that aren't good for you. Quite literally, Saturn is time. And so with that connection to your 5th and your 6th house, it's like, are you making time for the things that you love? Now, I've never seen a Saturn transit in the 8th house that doesn't materialize as like something kind of ending or going away or being transformed. So you might get rid of a bad habit, bring on a better, you know, physical or, you know, like emotional habit. You might, cut a relationship out of your life, but there might be another person that kind of comes back in. I could also see that this is a time where, self-reflection, study, research. You might get really into like learning about near-death experiences with Saturn and Neptune in your third, like watching podcasts or like reading books or things about like the other side. I also kind of get the impression that this is going to be an opportunity for you to really start thinking about what it is that you want to be investing yourself into that could potentially bring you some like long-term like wealth opportunities. So wouldn't be a bad time to like start thinking about, okay, you know what, am I, setting aside money? Am I investing money? Am I creating a retirement account for my older years? So I'm going to have something that I can kind of tap into. She says, well, that's helpful about clearing up the relationship issues regarding vulnerability. Yeah, I can be rigid. I mean, you got a lot of Capricorn in your chart, you're triple Earth. So I think that with that Aries energy, like it doesn't matter where Aries is in the chart, that represents that relationship to self, right? So with Virgo having Saturn and Neptune going into their 8th house, that means that they are having to emotionally and psychologically and in an intimate way make some big transformations and maybe not be so critical, be willing to do some things and get outside of your comfort zone. I also think that, the squares that are going to be coming up in 2027, when you see like Saturn then start coming into later degrees of Aries, it's going to hit your south node and it's going to square your north. It's going to conjunct your south node. It's going to square your moon, your Jupiter, and your Neptune. So it's going to start forcing you to be like, okay, I can't just be afraid of, being in a relationship. Like Capricorn in the 5th house means you have to treat dating like it's a job, or you have to date like hobbies like it's a job. You have to make time for it. You have to like dedicate yourself and commit to it. I wonder if there's some like hesitancy of like having kids, right? Because you've got Capricorn moon that's fallen. You've got Jupiter that's in its opposite sign of exaltation. It's conjunct Neptune. I wonder if there's some issues revolving around going beyond just surface dating and going deeper and feeling like you can connect with somebody and that you feel safe. And your Saturn is in Aries and it opposes Chiron in Libra. So whether it's, like financial issues in relationships or, kind of like really wanting to feel valued or like cherished by another person and like kind of getting outside of some of these squares that you were kind of born with, where, yeah, there is a focus on self and like self-pleasure and self-creativity, but it's about what you can build with another person. I've been investing for years. That's good, because you may find that that's actually going to end up being something that's going to be very valuable for you in the long run. But think of your Saturn return as kind of like the precursor for Saturn hitting the south node, which is ruled by Mars, and you've got Mars in the 9th. Like if you're able to invest and make or save enough money, it'll open the door for you to be like, well, if I do want to go on a big trip, or if I do want to go back to school, or if I do want to take a sabbatical away from work or something, like even though I know that you're really kind of like practical, I think you would actually be open to some of those things. And also renegotiating could be very much like Saturn in the 8th, renegotiating your benefits at work or your salary or your status, or, trying to be able to kind of bring more money in, because you'll see with Saturn in the 8th house, like other people are going to be stingy. So it could be partners that are kind of a little bit more stingy with money, or, bosses that are saying, well, we've got a tight budget, and you're going to learn to speak up and be like, no, I need this. Like, this is what I need, because Saturn teaches you in the 8th house. Are you going to give me what I need? Well, Mars is in the 9th, so they might pay for travel. They might pay for education or continuing education for you. It could also mean that you really want to travel with partners, but they have like tight funds, and you're going to be like, well, we have to save money if that's something that we want to do, Watch anything that's connected to documents too, because it's in a Gemini degree. Car loans, anything that deals with, leases, or anything that deals with like aunts, uncles, cousins, or siblings. There can be some like dealing with or working through some like childhood issues that can come up with Saturn being tied to your 5th house. But it is trining Pluto throughout your Saturn return. So that's going to provide some profound changes or transformations with your home life or your emotions, and maybe open the door down the road for you to be able to be like, yeah, now I can buy a home, or I can, do some of the things that I've been really kind of dreaming of that really transforms my inner world, all while Uranus at the top part of your chart is opposing Pluto. Like, I almost wonder if you're going to get a job opportunity or an offer that's going to allow you to like uproot and move somewhere else. That could be part of the change, moving, right? Saturn at a 3, especially because it's trining Jupiter. And you'll see transit Jupiter do the same thing. So moving or traveling definitely gets highlighted throughout these transits in this next year. And while you're in the Saturn transit, you can't really see the forest through the trees. Like as you're starting to get Saturn, that's at least 10 degrees away. So like next year when it's coming into conjunction with your south node and then it leaves, your Saturn return's pretty much wrapping up, and Neptune's going to be off of it too. So Be very cautious and careful with like any dealings when it comes to like investments or things that are foreign, or like investments in companies and things that you don't know. Make sure that they're like very well researched, and don't just trust anybody with your money. That's something that I would say with some of those 8th house transits. Hopefully that's helpful for you. And as a reminder, it looks like, because you're 29 this year, well, right now you're 29, you're going to turn 30 in May. So you're in a 6th house annual perfection. So like the next month, as all these planets go through your 6th house, it's putting an emphasis on health and habits and work and routine. And then when you get to your birthday, you're going to be in a 7th house year, and that's going to be focusing on relationships, ruled by Jupiter, and you've got Jupiter that's natally in the 5th. So it can be a pretty good breakout year in regards to relationships. I would be watching when you have the Pisces eclipse here around August 27th. Like that might bring in a prominent partnership. And I would also be watching transit Jupiter. Well, it's in the 12th. So that can mean some kind of a soulmate comes in, you're connecting with a foreigner, maybe somebody comes in that you don't expect, or somebody from the past. And that might be really heating up for you in October and November. And then you're also going to watch when planets are going to be going through that particular house, which won't be until next year. So that's going to get lit up again, you know, in February and March of 2026. And it does not look like there's going to be an eclipse there. So Pisces season 2026, when you're having your Juno return, 2027, excuse me, it's going to be a big kind of like relationship focal point, right? Hopefully that's helpful. I'm glad to hear you haven't seen some of the negative effects of the Saturn return yet, but you got 29 degrees on the 8th house cusp. So it does mean that this is a going deeper into relationship waters because it's connected to Jupiter, right? Start focusing on like meditations, I would say, on like vulnerability and love, and like breaking down walls or barriers that you have revolving around like intimacy. Because the 5th house is like, we can date, but the 8th house is like, now we merge, you know, and we learn to talk about our traumas or things that we've kind of been through, and that can like bring you closer to another person. All right, so we've got Iram. You're next on my list. Thanks, Junie. Let's pull Iram up. All right. Wow, Aquarius rising. Look at all these conjunctions you got going on. Aquarius rising, Sun in Aquarius, Moon in Aquarius. What is life like, Aram? My God, you were like in the line of fire. Lots of big changes for you in this next month, huh? All right, so Aram says, I would like to know about the solar eclipse on February 17th. Would love to get a precise prediction on how it can play out over the next 6 to 12 months. 12/18/85, 5:44 a.m. And you currently live in Sterling, but you're from Pakistan. What's up? I mean, how do you feel right now? If this were my chart, I don't know if I'd be shaking in my boots or just totally excited for everything that's about to happen. You are like a little mini archetype for where the astrology is going. God, Pluto on your ascendant, Pluto on your Jupiter, eclipses on your Mercury, eclipses conjunct your Sun. I mean, the next month is it's gonna go down in history for you. This is gonna be, yeah, this is gonna be a lot. I've got a couple of Aquarius rising friends that are telling me, they're just like, the pressure. And I'm like, you'll be fine. All right, so here's the deal. Eclipses are catalysts for change, right? So we know that when eclipses come in, first things first is you don't need to wait for the 17th for something to happen. So do not sit around and wait for the 17th and think that it's going to be like, you know, like doomsday or something. Something could happen right now. Something may very well happen over the next week. The reason why I tell you that is over this next week, watch my astro weather on Sunday. I talk about how every single freaking planet is going to conjunct Pluto this week. Okay, first Venus, then we're going to see Mercury and the Sun, and then at the end of this week, we're going to see Mars. And we know that that's sitting right on top of your Jupiter. So Jupiter is going to be about money, wealth, resources, self-esteem, security. And like Saturn's there, so you're like, I'm just finding the will to like be doing something different or believing in myself or making money or like getting something done. And then we're going to see Pluto get up to 5 degrees this year. So it's going to sit right on your ascendant at a 5, which is going to be about a creative breakthrough, a reinvention of your status or your career. And then it will retrograde back to about, I think, maybe 1 degree or something. So it's going to be just basically sitting on your ascendant and your Jupiter all year. Jupiter in the 12th house is more what you've been meditating in visualizing, like about money and wealth, because Pluto Jupiter can be wealth. So there's a wealth of ideas, right? There's a wealth of creativity. There's a lot of things that you're wanting to kind of build, but then you're waiting for the planets to cross your ascendant where you get the urge to do that. And then the eclipse comes in. So the eclipse is going to plant a seed. Solar eclipses are catalysts for change. So there's going to be some kind of unexpected like reinvention or plot twist or something about you in the relationship to yourself. Sun represents clients, marketplace, friends, relationships. Moon is going to be connected to your health and your habits. So it's going to be about finding ways to kind of adapt to changing circumstances with relationships in your daily routine, putting you front and center and you're on the spotlight. So 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 18 months from now, you may look very different. You may have a very different relationship to yourself. She says, I got a part-time contractor job today. I'm already working as full-time. So there you go. So that's the status change. And it's all eyes on you because Pluto is about kind of like being somebody who's in charge of something, right? It's your power and your kind of vision. So what's interesting is that this squares Uranus. So it's kind of squaring your chart ruler. And it's basically saying, all right, get to action, chop, chop. We're getting you out of the house. So maybe it means that you're going from, waiting for a job. Now you're working, you're running around, you're more physically active. Like it could mean that. But it also means it might show over the next 6 to 12 months where you're really restless, and because you're taking so much action and you're going after what you want, you may potentially move, or there could be a change in your living situation, or that you're now able to improve your living situation or get new furniture, visit your family more, all that. So there is some nervousness here. The fact that that's factored into your birthday is like a new moon on steroids. So everything this year is going to be brand new for you. There's like a lot of things that are getting kind of filtered out over the next like month. So like the next 2 weeks or so, there can be some shocking and surprising things about yourself that you're realizing, or things that you need to detox and kind of let go over. And it's stuff that you don't have control over, okay? Because Pluto's about control. She says, we're planning to get a new house in the next few months. There you go. So you're going to work hard to bring about that change and make this thing happen, because you're going to liberate your family, because you're hustling and you're grinding. Now, it's also squaring your natal Saturn, which is interesting because with the square to Saturn and also the South Node, you're moving away from old types of work or old responsibility or things that you used to do. You're embracing this new thing, but it's going to be a very physically kind of like demanding job, from the looks of it. I mean, just from what I can see. And then you will see within 6 months, this will become a full moon. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here's what it's seated in February. This is what it's going to bring. So what is it bringing? Okay, full moon in Aquarius, conjunct Pluto. So you're going to decide whether or not you're taking on too much work, or if it's too much for you, or if you're potentially moving. This could also be about your emotional habits and your nervous system, which I do think might get kind of checked with the Mercury retrograde. And this is going to be right on top of your moon. So it's going to be your lunar return. And it's going to highlight you and a partner. And Moon and Jupiter, Moon and the Sun are going to be in the 7th of relationship. So if you're in a relationship or your partner and you're married, it's like you guys being like, okay, what are we doing together to bring about this change at home? Because Taurus is the midpoint. Also, just for the useless file, with Uranus going into your 5th house, it could be about if you have children, your relationship to children. It could also mean that this could, bring about like a complete change to your body. Like I have seen some people go through these transits and they're pregnant, and like they're not planning on getting pregnant. So if you're not trying to do that, you've been forewarned. And I think with like some of the sextiles to Saturn, it's nice because it's going to bring more money, maybe even a change, like moving or a change to a vehicle. And then the trines to Uranus is also going to help you like make a change at home. But man, it's a great deal of pressure that's happening all at one time. It looks like this year, so you're 41 this year, so you're going into an annual perfection year 6. So that's going to highlight your moon. So Pluto coming into conjunction with your moon, the lunar eclipses, the full moons, when planets go through Cancer in June and July. It's all about like how you're learning to work with a team, because the moon's in Aquarius and Jupiter is conjunct your moon. So it means that you'll actually make more money through listening to your gut and your intuition in like navigating who you want to work with, when you want to work. Just watch your emotional habits with Pluto on your ascendant and also on your moon, because there can be a lot of like stress that can kind of happen because of work. And I would look into like sound bowl meditations, binaural beats, frequency healing, Reiki, sound healing, and all of that stuff can be really helpful to help kind of detox like negative emotions that can kind of come up while Pluto is conjunct some of those placements. And then the eclipse will last for some time. So you're going to see when the North Node hits your sun, that's highlighting your eclipse around your birthday. So that's going to be right around here in like August. And then it's going to hit Mercury where the eclipse actually is, and Mercury represents your 5th house. I mean, you say you're working as a part-time contractor, but I'm like wondering, like, you know, does this open the door to you being like, do I just want to work as like a freelance contractor? Like I can take more jobs from other people? Like, does it materialize as you starting your own company? Like not just feeling like you have to work on contractual jobs for an extended period of time. Like you can pick and choose what you want to take on. Right? Do you build your own team? I mean, something like that may come from some of this because some of the angles that it's kind of making to the South Node and Saturn. South Node, Saturn, the 10th in Scorpio is like, I don't want to work for other people. Been there, done that. You know, your North Node is in Taurus in the 4th. You want to work, you want to build, you want to do stuff where you can be able to work from home or still have your home or your family. And you're seeing that the North Node hitting your Sun and Mercury is you going like, okay, I see the potential for this. And you might start taking on jobs, but I think it'll materialize over the next year or two with there being some trines, and like it'll open the door for you in 2027 to start thinking about whether or not you want to either take on a business partner or if you want to start opening up to like your own clients. I will keep working full-time along with taking this new gig. Wow, so you're gonna be working your tail off. So just be mindful. Like the North Node conjunct Sun and Mercury, you're gonna have your wits about you, but I do feel like this is about getting creative and out of the box, and maybe kind of being open to the idea of taking on more creative gigs, or where you can kind of bring in like technology or other things that can kind of help you do your job like much more quickly, right? That's very much like the Pluto and like the Uranus kind of energy there. Go and learn about Pluto transiting your ascendant, because that's what you're going to be in all year. And then it'll be about like a year buffer, and then like 27 going into 28, you're going to have Pluto on your moon. But it's very obvious that you're not going to be able to continue the amount of output that you're doing now. I think when Pluto hits your moon, you're going to start to kind of realize like you need more freedom in terms of what you're doing work-wise. My current job is not that busy, working from home. The new gig is about training AI. There you go. There you go. I mean, I love that. I feel like with all the Aquarius energy, that's what you're supposed to be doing. And you're probably going to learn enough to be like, oh, I'm realizing there's other things that I can do, like other consulting gigs, other things that you can do that's creative. So may open the door to something that's going to be completely different for you. And I hope you enjoy it, because it looks like it's going to be fun. You'll have to come back and let me know like closer to the summer what happens with this eclipse, because it's supposed to be this like emergence of some new kind of creative project, or something that's like information based, because Mercury is conjunct your Sun. Wow, wow, wow. And Uranus has been squaring that. My goodness, you're finally going to get out of all of these squares and oppositions. Now you just have to kind of deal with Pluto. Embracing your personal power, especially if you know anything about AI, or you're like getting involved in like training or like certifications or things, you're going to definitely be able to have a lot more kind of like flexibility and like opportunities work-wise in the future. Yeah, you're going to be making a lot more money. Faux show. That's what Saturn leaving Pisces will do too. Well on you. Good job. I love that. All right, we've got Mandavi, Sunny Side Up, Corey, not Corey P, the other Corey, and then Estella. All right, let's look at Mandavi. You're welcome. All right, Mandavi, June the 6th, 1983, 9:15 a.m. in India. Let's go look at your question here. There we go. All right, 9:15 a.m. Right. I want to set up my own business as an independent digital marketing agency. Is this the right venture for me? If so, what's the best date to launch? If it's not a good idea, then what's the best direction? When every single area of my life is lit up in air, I really need financial security and stability, feeling grounded, and things might start to fall into place. I can see that. Especially Pluto going into your 7th house is what's making you go, oh, I need to do something different business-wise. Like I really feel like I need to make a change, and I need something I need to offer people. Marketing is usually the 9th house. And so what's interesting is the moon is there, so it does deal with some of your hidden talents or things that can kind of emerge, or intuitively feeling like that's the direction that you need to be going in because of your purpose. So Saturn, which rules clients and also services, going over your moon can definitely be a year where you're trying to build a marketing business. Especially Saturn right now is starting to come into a trine with Venus, which means that you're kind of opening up to the idea of, okay, there needs to be a new way to connect and kind of make money. And Aries is very entrepreneurial, right? But your chart's getting assaulted right now with Pluto squares. And that's probably why things feel very intense, is because Pluto's been hovering around that like 0 to about 3 degrees. And so if you look, it's been sitting right along your descendant, squaring your 10th house, where there's pressure to change. What used to be a comfortable job is no longer comfortable. It's opposing your ascendant, so it puts pressure on you, especially when it comes to money too. And it's squaring your 4th house, where you feel like you need home and like, you know, kind of like living stability. So I see it. There's always like a certain time that things come together, and like certain houses are going to be highlighted. So right now you're 42, you're going to be 43 this year. So you're in an annual perfection, you're 7. So we're looking at Saturn as your time lord, and things get really active when planets go through your 7th house. Well, fun fact, your 7th house is also your astrologer, so good time to get a reading. You're going to see all these planets go through your 7th house. And so natally, because Saturn rules the 7th and it's exalted in Libra, in your whole sign 3rd, retrograde conjunct Pluto, in order for you to move forward in relationships or offering services, you're reevaluating and reassessing. What do I have to say? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What's needing to change or transform in the way that I connect or kind of collaborate with people? Do I need to make a website? Do I need to think about also like social media and like other ways for me to connect and kind of like meet with others? So that's just some food for thought. Probably I would say from the time that Venus enters into this house, so January 17th, all the way up until you have the solar eclipse in this house, which is going to be February the 17th, 16th, 17th, depending on where you are, it's going to be like a very, very, very hot timeline. And then you're also going to see in February, Saturn, your time lord, goes into the 9th. So you're consulting with an astrologer or with mentors or gurus or teachers, or you're getting feedback before you move forward and you go and you launch this new business. And like the 9th house is definitely connected to business and also being somebody who's going to be like a leader to help other people. So I don't think you're on the wrong path. I also think because it's going into a Mars sign and it's going to be sextiling your natal Mars, it's also helping you like provide services to communities or people who could be online. So like, I don't think it's a bad idea. When you launch something like this is a whole different ball game. So usually, you know, I don't tell people to do stuff around eclipses. I feel like you want to see what happens with this eclipse and what potential people kind of come into your life who could kind of collaborate and help you. This eclipse is trining your Pluto and your Saturn, so it's helping you get connected and network. It's also trining your North Node in Gemini, so there's a lot of information that's going to be kind of coming through. It's not going to be built all at one time. That's the other thing I would say to you. Like, I think Saturn going over your moon is saying it's really testing you to see if this is really what you want to do. It's also about finding ways to connect, being in a foreign country. The moon connects with foreign countries and it's in the 9th. And so you might be kind of branching out, trying to do stuff that's going to be more international. And Venus rules your career. So we're also looking at, well, what's going on with your Venus? Well, Saturn and Neptune are no longer trining it. You're going to start to lose that. But if you are full steam ahead with like marketing programs or projects, you're getting certification, you're doing training, and you're working on that February, March, April, then most likely what you're going to find is when Jupiter comes into a conjunction with your Venus, you're going to start to see the fruit of your labor, which is here, right around mid-June of 2026. And then by the end of the month, you go into July of 2026, and now Jupiter is sitting on your ascendant, so that is going to bring you more opportunity to kind of expand and make more money. And then Jupiter will trine Saturn. But Saturn on your moon is saying you need like a, wonder if you need like a mentor, you know, like somebody that you need to kind of like connect with, or somebody who can kind of guide you, or you go through some kind of like a program or something that is going to like connect you with other people who are trying to get into these types of like, you know, careers. And it can be a networking group too, because you've got Uranus that's coming into aspect with Saturn. So I could definitely see that being part of it. And then as you start to see then planets move away from Venus, you're going to be more situated, and I think obviously a little bit more financially situated too by the second half of summer. Now, there's still going to be like a Venus retrograde in your 4th house in the fall, so like that could indicate you're potentially considering picking up and moving or relocating, and a Mercury retrograde there as well. And you'll be thinking about whether or not you're going to be moving to another country or if you're going to be going potentially back home. So like the retrogrades could potentially bring you there. So I would be more focusing on an international market, especially with Venus being your 10th house lord in the 12th in Cancer. So this is about you being able to work with people, particularly women that can be connected to beauty, property, real estate, luxury, that kind of stuff. Venus at 29 in the 12th house. Do you have like a particular industry that you're wanting to kind of like work with and do marketing for? At least Neptune's still trining your Venus right now. So it's opening the door to you being like, yeah, I can get more creative and start thinking of ways that I can do this type of work. But anybody who is their 10th house lord in the 12th house, they either need to be working in a foreign land or they need to be doing something that's going to be like working with nonprofits, working with women, working with art, working with charitable companies. I mean, that's something I would look for, especially that specializes in home housing or like helping women or helping children because of the actual degree and the sign that it's in. And going and doing work for like philanthropy type like groups and like companies, like you could be doing marketing for them and like events and other things where they're doing fundraisers. I wonder if that's like another option for you. And then obviously, you know, this is only until your birthday in June. When you get to your birthday, then it's going to shift gears and it's going to go into a Pisces year, which is highlighting the 8th house, and Jupiter is going to be your time lord. And this is about, you know, going through a lot of emotional changes and potential changes with home. But your natal Jupiter is sitting in your 5th house conjunct Uranus. It means you're going to have like a breakthrough with creativity, self-employment, dating, you know, even like with romance. Just globalism ideas. So I want you to be focusing on like women affiliated groups, companies, philanthropy, and even Saturn hitting your moon too. So it might be like women's organizations and things that's connected to helping women or providing scholarships. That's something else you might want to look for. Or it could be like more philanthropy and things where people are connecting with like artists and like musicians, and people who have money that's also invested in property and real estate. So like international like real estate companies, that can be something else that you can connect with. But these would be industries that you could definitely, I think, gain from, especially while Jupiter is coming into conjunction with Venus. So it's going to be stuff that's going to have to be international. It doesn't have to necessarily be where you're currently living, right? Hopefully that's helpful for you. Right now, things are confusing because of the water trines. Guys, I can't tell you how different things are going to be here pretty soon. February through April is going to be like whiplash for a lot of people because all this energy has been held back while we've had stuff in Pisces and also things that have been in Capricorn, things that have been in Taurus. So Saturn and Neptune go into conjunction in February. Uranus goes into Gemini in April. I mean, Pluto's already in Aquarius. Like it's going to be basically all of a sudden people are going to wake up and they're going to go, this is what I want to do. And I would say with Saturn on your moon, it's like you're going to be more driven to travel. You're going to be more driven to do marketing. You're going to be more driven to go and explore places and new potential businesses and avenues and new client relationships. And you'll be feeling like you can just like walk up to people or shoot emails and kind of shoot your shot. So get comfortable with reaching out to people and trying to make some of these connections and seeing if you could propose some of your services in some of these industries, even if you don't necessarily have a background working for them. Focus more on the experience with marketing and see if there's like a teacher or a guru that pops up while this transit's kind of going on in your 9th. Hopefully that's helpful for you. We've got Sunny Side Up, and then Corey, and then Estella. All right, so let's see. Sunny Side Up. Let's go and look at this and see what she said. Make sure this is the right one. 3/11/95. Okay. After my Cancer full moon live reading, I left my boyfriend and moved across the country to be with family. Life is better, and thank you for your help. What should I expect for career and relationships now? All right. Well, let's take a look. Sounds like you're going through a lot of change. So I hope you're moving through that well. Let me go and do a refresher here. What happened with that full moon here? So full moon in Cancer, right on your moon with Jupiter to oppose the sun, which brought up relational dynamics. And then the solar eclipse is doing a lot of the same thing. So you're going to see now it's about kind of like redefining who you are outside of relationships. And if you're wondering what you should expect in relationships now, well, first things first, the sun rules relationships. So it's moving through the 12th house. So that means that you're releasing the sense of feeling karmically burdened or stuck or limited or responsible for or guilty about relationship matters. So I do think that with the sun going through the 12th house, you're still kind of letting some of these like things kind of subside, or these feelings subside, or you're letting stuff kind of come to an end naturally. And then when the sun comes into conjunction with Pluto, that can definitely highlight where there is like a profound emotional or psychological purge of any issues that you had in regards to relationships and detaching from them and detaching the ego from it. And I think with the Cazimi, you might feel like there is like this hope for a new relationship that can come in after clearing all of that out. There could still be some shocks and surprises also with those conjunctions. And then the next thing is going to be the solar eclipse, which is going to be in Aquarius right on your ascendant. So it's about a new relationship to self. Now that could bring people in because the sun rules others, but the sun and the moon are more you kind of getting into balance with who you are outside of like a relationship identity. And then you're going to be seeing that there is going to be this conjunction to Mercury, which is opening the door to being more creative, feeling more joyful, and dating. And then you're going to have a Mercury retrograde over your sun. Like, I feel like there's part of you that's like, okay, I'm really excited for this new beginning and I'm embracing it. And then there's another side of you in February when Mercury retrogrades conjunct your sun that somebody may try to get in touch with you, reconnect with you, and you're kind of in your feelings about it, and you're trying to decide whether or not you want to like reconnect with that person. And I think with Mercury going retrograde conjunct Saturn, it's about having really good boundaries with who you're willing to entertain or whether or not you're willing to go back and forth with the past and like really kind of protecting yourself in the process. This is feeding off of Jupiter, which is in your 5th, conjunct your moon. So it's focusing on better emotions, better health, better habits, but also like new opportunities for love and relationships, and where you're saying, no, it's not you, or this isn't going to work because you know it's not actually going to bring you what you want in a relationship. So you might have to practice some really good boundaries there. And a lot of Pisces will find that it's about going back and forth with a relationship, whether you're tempted to reconnect with somebody or somebody's trying to reconnect with you. So there's going to be a little bit of like a back and forth there. And then I think that relationships get a little bit more of a boost personally down the road. So you may find with the Virgo eclipse that that's finally bringing closure or some kind of final decision about going back and forth with the past. It can bring a meeting, but because it's a South Node eclipse with Mercury retrograde in your sign, I think it's about just letting somebody go and embracing that change. And then you will see bigger opportunities in relationships when Jupiter wakes up in your 5th house. So this will be the second half of March. You'll also see some opportunities when Venus goes into your 5th house. That's going to be like the 3rd week of May. And then you're going to see Mars and Uranus go through your 4th house. Mars goes into your 5th, where your love life can get interesting, especially with Mars on your moon. That can be like a sexy little connection in August. And then Jupiter and the sun are going into your 7th house. And that is really highlighting like where there's some relationship kind of glow up taking place. Whether somebody new is coming in, or it's going to be like a relationship that's been building and now you're like ready to like do a hard launch. And then you'll have a solar eclipse connected to your 7th house, which is definitely about a new relationship coming in. Jupiter brings more stability. Mercury definitely brings better communication. And then you also have the, the aspects that it's going to be making to Saturn, which is your chart ruler. Better communication, better travel, feeling a little bit more settled. I mean, I think the best is yet to come as you're getting into like the summertime. So pretty much like June, July, August is when you're going to see the real turning points. But also in the background, I think that until the North and the South Node leave Virgo and Pisces, there is a lot of just focusing on yourself. And I know that may not be what you want to hear, but It's about being okay, being on your own, embracing that, you know, kind of sitting with your feelings, like really doing some like internal searching and like healing and retreat. And then it's like, boom, as soon as it goes into Aquarius, then you're like, I actually really like being alone, you know? And as soon as you start thinking like that, things are going to change, especially in the summertime. So watch for some of those eclipses to really light things up. I also think that a lot of Aquarius risings, just having Uranus going into the 5th house, like there can be like love and relationships that can pop up suddenly, or there could be more than one person that you're meeting or connecting with. We do need to see some good stuff that's happening with your sun for a relationship to come in. So probably the best is the emotional healing until the summer, and then there can be a lot more action, you know, June, July, August, that can be happening like in relationships. And you'll see it happening around the eclipses, because you're not going to see eclipses in your 7th house, and it's not going to materialize as some kind of relationship growth and feeling like wanted, and that you're in something that makes you feel like safe, because Jupiter is going to be there as well. Somebody that's like investing in the relationship that you're actually kind of building. Sure, there will still be some eclipses and some retrogrades, but I do think for the most part, it's going to give you the opportunity to be like, wow, when I least expected somebody was going to come in, they come in, and it can actually be like a really great love story, especially with Jupiter going into Leo. I think it could be a lot of fun. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight on what to expect, and that things are looking up. I know a lot of Pisces placements have had a really difficult time with relationships, but I think Aquarius risings are going to have some really cool things that are going to happen this year. All right, we've got Corey and then Estella. All right, let me make sure I've got the right Corey, because now I know that we've got a couple of them in here. So we've got Corey first. All right. What's up, Corey? Thanks for your patience. All right, let me make sure I've got the right one here. And that was 629.77. Why am I not seeing you? There we go. There he is. All right. Gemini rising, sun in Cancer, moon in Sag. All right, Corey says, in 2025, I had multiple business deals go forward with great momentum and then frustratingly stop or vaporize. Okay. You can blame Pisces for that. You know, you can blame Pisces for that. So a lot of it's just connected to the fact that in this last year, you've had eclipses in your 10th house of career. You have had retrogrades in your 10th house of career. And as Pisces does, it vaporizes, it hides, it goes missing. There's something that's just kind of like, that just goes MIA. So the positive thing is like pretty much for the most part, all of the energy in Pisces is now out of your 10th house Placidus. The only thing that's moving through your 10th house now is the North Node. It's still in Pisces, so it means that there can still be some confusion. And I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't see another period here where I think something can be up. And this will be probably the end of February when Mercury's going through Pisces, your chart ruler, where it's not strong and it can be kind of confusing. So you're trying to have meetings, you're trying to sign things, you're trying to make deals. And then Mercury's going to go retrograde. Okay, so if there's any takeaway, all the way up to about February 20th, we're already in the shadow of where the Mercury retrograde will be. Now, it's been happening technically in your Placidus 11th. So it means that it's going to be like trying to negotiate, you know, have meetings, get people to call you back, trying to work as a team. And then you're like, okay, people want to do this. And then they kind of separate. Now, Mercury will retrograde conjunct Venus. So that basically means that it's giving you the idea to maybe reconnect with people who haven't been sure, or you're going to kind of write some names off of your list. If you're like, you know what, we're not going to hold space for these potential business partnerships or these deals, we keep moving forward. You can use like the end of February into March to like send out like a generic or like a general, hey, following up with you, wanted to see if you wanted to reconnect, you know, would still love to work with you. And like whoever bites, bites, and whoever doesn't. Like don't try to force things, because the retrograde is like hopelessly and gloriously confusing, especially as it's squaring your Jupiter. So it's going to be bringing up where people are kind of in and out or backing out of things because they don't know if they have the money, or they're not really sure how business is going to go, or they're kind of wanting to put things on hold and wait and see. You know, maybe the trines that are going to be happening to Jupiter in your second house are going to be bringing you some resources. And naturally, when Jupiter rules other people's money and it's retrograding through your second house, it's just like you're waiting for other people to show up and like have the money to be able to do deals. So things were good when Jupiter was direct, right? So you should have seen some positive things that were kind of happening around here. You saw it a little bit in late June, and then you saw it a little bit in August. But even then, like the Jupiter square to Saturn was saying like some people weren't ready, right? So there's some hesitation. So you'll see a little bit of it in February. Maybe do your check back with people, see whether or not they want to reconnect. But the solar eclipse, that one is going to be in your 10th house, my dude. So that is going to be planting a seed in regards to new beginnings and like creative kind of outlooks and like wanting to be full steam ahead with some ideas and projects. Frustrating because it's going to square Uranus, but nice for you because it's going to be trining your Jupiter. It's pretty wide, but it is trining your Jupiter. So you're more optimistic about like where you're going with new projects at work. Could involve travel, marketing, you know, education. This is also going to trine your North Node in Libra, so it's going to help you get into work with the right people, the right partnerships. And I do think that this is basically going to be like kind of like your launching board for the better part of like the next like 6 to 18 months. It's almost like kind of channeling what the Taurus rising readings are. It's like a solar eclipse that's like prompting something new. And getting outside of your comfort zone and also gaining clarity about what is not stable so you can focus on kind of new networks and new systems. And then we look at Saturn because Saturn is the traditional ruler of your 10th. It's moving through the 11th. So you got to do more networking. You got to be moving and shaking. You got to do stuff without people. You have to be more willing to go your own way, and you're kind of mixing business and pleasure. And then Uranus is the co-ruler of your 10th house, which is going to go into your sign as a Gemini. And there's a lot of talking, a lot of networking, a lot of traveling opportunities that start popping up for you in June and July and probably into August. And once this is sitting on your ascendant and it starts trining Pluto, you're like, I can do this and I can do that. Like there's a lot of diversity that's kind of coming through your position at work, or you're wearing multiple hats, but I think you're going to like it. I think it's going to be really fun. And I do see like a money-making period where there is also a reversal that's kind of going on with resources, or money that's owed to you is coming back to you in June going into July, when even Mercury retrograde there. But it's, I mean, North Node eclipses, stuff going through your 10th house, you're definitely going to see the change happening at work. And now it's playing nicely with your Jupiter over the next 2 years. It does look like you also said in 2025, you reunited with an ex-girlfriend who pulled away and ghosted during the holidays. I mean, yeah, Mercury retrograde in your 7th, but that one was particularly nasty because it was also going retrograde from Sagittarius, where it's not strong. It has like a lot of like, we could be great, and then it starts to lose momentum. It was opposing Jupiter. That's your chart ruler. So it was like you going, this person was telling you, yeah, I want to make it work. Let's reconnect. Let's get back together. And then it started retrograding in like November going into December. And then they went MIA because it dropped into your 6th house, which is where they hide. And Mars was conjuncting Neptune and your moon. So it seemed like a good idea. Probably wasn't, to be honest with you. And now that Uranus is going to cross your ascendant, you're a little less reluctant to like want to throw yourself into a relationship. However, I do think like with planets going through Aquarius trining your Jupiter right now, you know, you're more optimistic and willing to kind of connect and meet people, although it's either through travel or education. And then you are going to see when you start having planets coming up on your Jupiter, that could be very different. That could be a period of bringing people into your life. So that could be right around early May. And then you could also see with Mars conjuncting Jupiter, that could also be a theme at the end of July. And then I think when Jupiter and Saturn are trining, there's going to be more stability in relationships at the end of summer going into the fall. And it does mean that it's also a time where you're like, oh, I might be introducing them to my friends, or there's going to be some kind of merger of our social groups or something of that nature. And then you also have Jupiter conjunct Saturn. I mean, you might start seriously contemplate talking about being like, well, you know, at the end of this year, would I consider, you know, moving for somebody or somebody moving to be with me? And so there's going to be a lot of talk about swift changes happening in relationships and also your home and your living situation, which is likely actually going to change from the beginning of 2027. And so with Jupiter being there, you know, you might have a partner that's changing jobs and willing to move, or, you know, you might have somebody that's like, well, you know, if you don't have enough space, do we try to find space to do something together? Usually if you've got some connection between Jupiter and your 4th house lord, you know, you can see that exes come back. I think you just happen to kind of get hit with some of the retrogrades and kind of rubbed you the wrong way. But your natal Jupiter is in your 1st house at a 19. So you have to decide what you want in a relationship. And there's always like more than one option for you because it's in Gemini. So it's like also implying that you can be one person when you're in a relationship and then another person when you're by yourself. And you have to realize or like really think about what it is that you want in a relationship. When you get more into balance with yourself, with your 7th house lord there, you'll be able to communicate your needs better, and you're not going to find that you're like bringing in women who are like damsels in distress. Moon and Neptune in the 7th house is like, sure, they can be really sexy or foreign, or they can have beautiful eyes and they're like creative and whimsical and emotional, but like they're usually kind of a mess. And you need to realize that you're not here to save relationships, that if you communicate what you need, and you can also, you know, give people the necessary space because they may be a little clingy at first and then they run. Or maybe you're saying, you know, we're going to just think this through before we merge our lives, or, you know, we're talking about moving in together, whatever. A little bit of distance to like allow them to not feel flighty can be a good thing. And like they attach to you. I don't think it's you doing it to them. I think it's people who have a tendency of having like mommy issues, Moon Neptune, or, you know, they didn't have a strong mother figure, or they've got some emotional issues, or they've got some psychological issues, or even some drug or alcohol issues. And like they have a coping mechanism where they need something to hold on to. You cannot be that crutch for other people. Let there be a little bit of space, and then as Saturn and Jupiter start trining your planets in the 7th house, there could be more serious talks about what's next, but don't rush into anything. Use Uranus to your advantage. Use that as almost like leverage to be like, I need freedom, or I'm traveling, or I've got stuff going on, or work stuff's happening. And like they will have to become accustomed to you not being there all the time. And I think that your relationships will stabilize as a result of that. And obviously all my Cancers just in general are just full steam ahead with work. So the more that you're networking and starting groups, joining groups, getting affiliated with people, it's really going to help your career. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Wow, on point about what? About being sexy or crazy? Or both? Usually the good-looking ones are the crazy ones. All right, so we're going to move now to the next one. We've got Estella, and then we've got Private, and then we have Aaron. Thank you guys for your patience. I know I'm moving a little slow tonight. All right, so let's go and look at Estella. You're welcome. Estella's March 13th, 1993. And she says, hey, Candace, would love to get a look at a new moon update for my chart, March 13th, 93 in Germany. Let's do it. I would have to say the Virgo risings, I feel like, are going to do pretty well with this new moon. I mean, unless you got like a lot of cardinal in your chart that's squaring, which you really don't. You have a lot of sextiles to your Pisces, and you have a lot of sextiles to your Pluto. So this is a pretty friendly new moon for you. I do think that obviously the conjunction that you're seeing, so it's at 28, it's pretty close to your Uranus and also Neptune. So that could be like, you know, sudden sparkly interests, creative interests, romantic interests, people who can suddenly kind of show up, or you're just feeling like more inspired through romance, hobbies, children, self-expression. And it's pretty friendly because this is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is sitting in your 7th house. It's direct. It's coming into conjunction with your sun, or it's coming out of conjunction with your sun. So this is about you going, what do I want in romantic relationships? How can I be more creative? How can I share this with others? So it's a good relationship manifesting moon. It's a good moon to be willing to take chances. I love the fact that it's trining Uranus. It can be good for spontaneous travel or learning. And an upgrade of your values. Like I think of like Taurus as anything that deals with crystals or jewelry or gardening or cooking. So if there's any hobbies that you have an interest with that are kind of connected to that, this is a good time to plant seeds to do more of those things. It is also sextiling your Pluto, so it's good for like expressing yourself creatively and being passionate. So if you have like blogs or writing or journaling or anything you want to share online, this is good for that as well. serious talks and conversations in love, I think, can be one of them. And I really, really think that the opposition by sign to Jupiter is interesting, because this is a lot of what can I do that I'm going to enjoy, that I love, or how am I practicing more self-love and maybe not feeling the need to like impress other people or do things for other people or make sacrifices for my joy, you know, to kind of support others. Like, it's bringing it back to you. So there is this like natural kind of selfish energy that's happening when you have planets in the 5th house, because it's like a Leo energy. So the sun loves being in there. And then you also have the sextile to Saturn, the ruler, on your sun. So it's like trying to kind of get you to ask yourself, how are you going to feel the most love? What is the most romantic? What is going to be the dream kind of date or the dream relationship setup? Or how are you learning how to inject more kind of like creativity, but also responsible romance to really kind of steer the relationships where you want them to go? And we know that Saturn doesn't deny, he delays. So if you have been feeling a little disgruntled with your relationships, or if you haven't really been feeling loved, or maybe you've been afraid of dating, or there's been a little bit of coldness or distance, it can mean that this is like bringing it back in a more structured way. And you're definitely going to see with Saturn and Neptune leaving your 7th house a pretty dramatic change to your relationships. It probably won't be emerging until closer to like March, after like the eclipses and the retrogrades. But even the incoming eclipse, not this one, but this one is right on your ascendant. So it's like you have a new moon in the 5th house where it's very fertile with like new energies or new opportunities to bring in relationships, and also can be connected to pregnancy. And then you have the full moon lunar eclipse that's going to be right on your ascendant. So that there's something here that's saying there's a big emotional clearing. And this is ruled by Mercury, which is retrograding through your 7th. So it does kind of tell me there's like a really karmic kind of defining moment in relationships. And it's like the grand finale of the Saturn Neptune like lessons. And it's whether you have felt like you're questioning an existing partnership and then it may change in March, or if you've been really looking for like a really deep soul connection, you might find that there is a pretty prominent connection happening in like March going into April. I think it's going to be great. I don't see any issues with it. Saturn's not on your Venus net, you're good in that department. Chiron's moving away, you're good in that department. The sextiles to Pluto, I mean, it's making some really beautiful aspects. You'll have to see what's going to happen obviously 6 months down the road when this becomes a full moon. But when this becomes a full moon, the moon is on the cusp of your 5th house, which is also very fertile, trining your ascendant, ruled by Saturn, and it's squaring Saturn. So this is where we go from getting to know each other, just kind of feeling it out, dating, you know, that kind of stuff, to then opening the door and being like, oh, well, now we're getting a little bit more serious, and like we're talking about things and we're practicing transparency, and like there's a sense of being seen, and that can feel a little like uncomfortable. So the relationship stuff might become more involved as you're getting into June. This also does kind of highlight caution whenever it comes to taking risks with like investments or anything that's speculative. A new moon in the 5th house can be like really excited to get out there and like take some creative risks or some financial risks. But the full moon is kind of saying there's a possibility that it may not necessarily play out the way that you think. So try to be a little bit more cautious and conservative, especially watching Saturn coming up on your Venus this year. It's not going to hit it, but it's going to get close. Hopefully that gives you some insight, Estella. All right, we've got Private No Name. Aaron's got some synastry. Then we've got Jess. Stacy says, I sent my payment yesterday, but I didn't include my details. I emailed them, but I'm in Australia. Okay, hold on a second here. What was the payment name under so I can see it? Oh, I see you here, Stacy. I'll add you to my list. I can't open my email. You need to send it to me in the chat because I have too many windows open. So you need to send me your date of birth, the other person's date of birth, and your question. And always put that in the PayPal so that way I can see it. Otherwise, I'll sometimes overlook it. So I'll put you here at the end. Yeah, I see your payment. But I don't have any of the details. It's okay, no worries. All right, so we're gonna take Private and then Aaron. So let me open that up. All right, so where is it? There we go. All right, so keep my name private. Birthday is January 1877, And they are a Capricorn rising, sun in Capricorn, moon in Capricorn, triple cap. Man, things have been intense, I would imagine, but this is a really big power up period for you, so I kind of like it. All right, so the new moon is hours after my solar return. Looks intense, already feeling it. Where should I be consciously focusing? What good things are ahead? Really needing shifts in peace. Well, your birthday looks like by degree, it's going to be right around the 18th. No, I take that back, the 17th. It's going to be sometime between the 17th and the 18th. That's the actual solar return. I do think that I would look at this in a positive way. Like, number one, you were born under a similar lunation. So yes, you were born right before there was a new moon, which basically means there's a lot of things that feel like they're kind of getting phased out in your life and you're embracing and initiating something new. Capricorn transits through and through. When planets go through there, when there's full moons, when there's new moons, when there's outer planets moving through there, it's very personal and you have to make it all about you. You have to be selfish right now because the sun's on the ascendant. The truth is that you're here to focus on your goals, your purpose, your reputation, your career, and obviously self-transformation. You just can't quite see that because the sun is intercepted through your 7th house, through Leo, right? It gets swallowed up. So this is a year of profound personal change. I like new moon birthdays because it means that at least everything in the next year is going to be like a clean slate. So yes, maybe you're feeling a little unsure about some of the things that are getting kind of like flushed out, but I would embrace it. And I would not set any intentions probably until after the moon starts separating from Pluto. So now we're looking at your actual birthday, the 18th. And I would want the moon to start maybe coming into a sextile with your Mars. I think that's a good time. So you could do something, you know, very, very early on the 19th or even later in the day. You're going to see then the moon continue to keep moving through and yeah, still picking up that sextile to Mars. So the morning of the 19th is when you set intentions. I believe that for a Capricorn rising, in a nutshell, having a new moon right on your ascendant and your sun and your moon basically is picking up so much energy from Saturn because it's sextiling Saturn. And Saturn is basically saying there's something that we're about to either stabilize or something that we're going to get clarity on or something that we're going to be kind of building that's going to be stronger. Technically, yes, it is your Placidus 2nd house. So it's self-esteem, security, money, values. But it could also mean from the 3rd house perspective, getting more clear about expressing your emotions, being more direct with people about how you feel, speaking up, writing things, learning things, potentially traveling, potentially moving, right? So there's something like that that's going to be kind of like happening here. And I do think that what's really beneficial about this is that it's going to make you inspired to be like, okay, now I can see all of the things that I haven't been doing, so now I can get the show on the road. And a lot of Capricorn and Capricorn risings are telling me they want to move, right? Or they're telling me that they want to buy a car or that they want to relocate to a new country, or they, in your case, it might mean I want to learn something, or I want to start writing something, or I want to, you know, learn a language, start a course. It depends. It's because it's in Pisces. When it gets into Aries, though, it's going to be a little bit more defined. And, you know, obviously you're in your Saturn square Saturn period. So it has probably materialized as like a lot of kind of, you're seeing issues that are coming about because you're not saying something or you're not investing in yourself or you are retreating, which you kind of like to do with Saturn in your whole sign 12th and all those planets in your 12th house too. And it's about finding the words and taking action. So you'll notice as you're getting into like February, March, April, when planets are moving into Aries, it's going to be like full steam ahead. And now you're going to feel like, okay, I'm going to say something, I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to make a plan, I'm going to follow up with it. If I say I'm going to go somewhere, I'm going to go there. If I say that I'm moving, I'm going to go there. You know, these are things that you're going to start noticing as Saturn, your chart ruler, starts sextiling Pluto. And even though you'll hear for Capricorn and Capricorn rising, oh, it's going to be about, you know, like moving and relocating and saving money. Some of that stuff might materialize, but I would actually be listening to Aquarius rising because you're so close to being a late degree Capricorn that the Aquarius, you know, stuff will resonate for you. Just know where Saturn is. I also think that if we look at, are you in the chat? I'm not sure if you're actually here because I don't have the location of where you live now. Oh, Phoenix, I take that back. All right, let me look at this. Just to get like a peek, you know, like, because this is a big, This is a very big new moon on your birthday. So this is going to be your solar return chart. So the actual solar return will be at January 17th at 2:12 p.m. Lost my business last year due to betrayals and health issues. Began during my Pluto square, Pluto 2015. Rebuild or rest, shift to something new. Nope, you're rebuilding. The new moon's about rebuilding. And like, look at, your chart is a Gemini rising. So what is that highlighting? The same thing as your Saturn and Neptune transit in your third house. There's a Gemini energy. I'm going to speak up. So it's about communication, learning, and connecting with business, keeping an open mind and maybe seeing a secondary path. Mercury is the ruler. Mercury is conjunct Mars. So this does look like a lot of like rebuilding when it comes to your philosophy about your career with all that 8th house Capricorn. But Mercury and Mars conjunct means that you're driven to like go after new dreams and that you're realizing certain things had to get flushed out before you start something new. But look at the eclipses are going to be hitting right around the North Node. The Mercury retrogrades are going to be going right through here. There's a whole restructuring that's going to happen for you February and March when it comes to your professional life. And then the other thing that you're going to be seeing that's going to be going on is also Uranus is going to be going into the same sign. Won't cross the ascendant, but it'll be there. Jupiter is retrograde in the 2nd house, so there's opportunity to reevaluate your wealth. And I really feel like with all the planets in the 8th house, it's like, how can you find the positive in the situation? I mean, there may be people who want to invest in your new business ideas. There might be some kind of growth that can come from some kind of like an investor or a business partner. It's also about really embracing the ending that's coming from one phase of your work, so there's another one that can begin. And it's saying the same thing through the trines to Uranus in your 12th house. It's like having to release that, you know. But the North Node in Pisces ruled by Jupiter is saying, you know, intuitively and emotionally that there's supposed to be something like that's much better and like more positive that's going to be coming as a result of these changes. Lots going on because every part of this life is kind of an upheaval. Traveling there this weekend. Let's compare this to this. So when I put your natal on top of it, Venus conjunct the North Node is good for reworking your career, your professional status. Mars conjunct the descendant means you may have to feel like you have to be cautious with who you're kind of partnering with. And then obviously the solar return is the same, and then the lunar return is very similar. And the 4th house, the 4 degree in the 8th house is also talking about changes with your home. So that's part of the change that's going to kind of come in. But personally, I mean, at least Uranus is trining you in the process. Uranus is saying, yeah, good changes at home. You know, changing something about your stability, changing something about your creativity. Like, it feels destabilizing, but Uranus is going to keep supporting you through these trines until it comes out of about 28, 29 degrees. Then you don't have the same support anymore. So some of the shocks and the changes that are happening emotionally in your foundation and also your home is, yeah, it's a lot, but I think that it's really opening the door to you being like, well, maybe it is good for me to start over, and maybe I do need to kind of like downsize, or maybe I do need to kind of think a little bit more conservatively in terms of where I'm putting my energy and kind of my, my focus. I mean, that's what's going to happen. This year, you're 38, and that was, what, as of the 18th? So a couple days, you're going to be turning 38. So you'll be in that Jupiter 3rd house year, whole sign. So if we look at Jupiter, Jupiter is actually in your whole sign 4th. So it's saying you're going to move, or you're going to travel more, so that way you can either do some kind of writing or reflecting or re-strategizing your business, and you're trying to find a way to be able to build a business that you can do from home. And there's going to be growth because Jupiter's at a 21. And then that'll solidify next year when Saturn hits that conjunction to Jupiter. And then you're going to be feeling like you've graduated from something that you have been building. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. But I would be listening to the Aquarius rising horoscopes because I think they're going to be very similar to what you've got going on. And if this is the finale of Saturn and Neptune squaring your natal Saturn and Uranus, I mean, I've seen a lot of people, 1986, 1987, 1988, the Saturn-Neptune squares to your guys' Saturn-Uranus, it's been very difficult because these are immutable signs. And so it's kind of like, usually you're really optimistic about being like, hey, everything's going to work out. It's going to be great. And it's kind of hit you hard financially. But once it starts going into Aries, it's going to really kind of, it's going to kind of like, in a way, like fertilize some of the things that have kind of gone wrong this year. And it's going to help you be able to do something that's going to give you the ability to have business that you can do like from anywhere. So whether you're doing it remotely or you're traveling, there's going to be something else that's going to be kind of coming up. I want to make sure I have your right info. Hold on a second here. Because you're seeing things that are a little bit different. Oh, shoot. This isn't even you. Hold on a second. Birmingham. Oh, it's 77. My bad. Hold on a second. I was like, something's not right here. There we go. Does that look more like your chart? Yeah, I can see it. So that was my bad, sorry. The annual perfection is a 49 in January. So that's an Aquarius year. So it's still a second house year. I mean, it's really the same thing. I use Placis, I don't use whole house. So the planets that are going through your second house are all going to be happening right after your birthday. So the new moon is planting the seeds for what you're going to be building. And in Aquarius, it's like you're getting serious about completely rebuilding your finances from the ground up. That's going to be pretty significant here. So right after your birthday on the 28 degrees, we've got from January 18th through about the 28th, when those planets conjunct Pluto, this is going to be the reemergence of what you're now building. And yeah, finances are going to be tight. There's going to be a huge focus on finances, but that's going to start to break. And then when those planets separate, and then Saturn, the ruler of the second house, goes into Aries, then it looks like you're making a change. So are you moving back home? Are you having to switch something about your home location? That's going to also square your Mercury and your Mars and also your moon. Keep an eye on siblings. Keep an eye on vehicles. Okay, if your parents are around, keep an eye on your parents, because this could actually be a transit that could bring you back home for some reason. And then if you notice the new moon, let's go back to that. It's going to square your nodes right here. Oops, no, right here. So you have the North Node in Libra, South Node in Aries, and this is going to square it. So it's basically saying it's time to get the show on the road. Be investing in yourself, being focused on how you're communicating, be mindful of your thoughts. It may be prompting that there's going to be a business that's going to be flexible or like online, but then it's also saying that there's going to be some like movement or changes with your living situation. Still being trined by Uranus in your fourth, that's good. And you've got Chiron that's coming into conjunction with your South Node. So really, the financial stuff is real, but I think Chiron coming into a Chiron return is talking a lot about like wounded words and how you're communicating and connecting with family and whether or not you're feeling like supported on the home front. And I would also really pay attention to that, because Saturn is going to be in the same sign as your Chiron return, and that's going to be around April. And then Saturn square Mercury is going to be more about work and health. Saturn square Mars is going to be about home. Saturn square your moon, which is going to be about relationships. Husband lost income due to injury. We're in our RV. So with Jupiter retrograde through your 7th house, that's about somebody healing from an injury, because that's your 12th house Lord. So you're not going to see much that's going to improve with that. That's still going to be a back and forth with the injury until Saturn squares. Living with friends, settlement coming. Well, I mean, money stuff can be coming through when you have eclipses, for sure. So like, for example, as a Capricorn rising, when the eclipse comes in Aquarius, it's setting the stage to be like, okay, there's some money coming in that's going to allow us to kind of get out of like this, living situation where we're doing this communal living, right? Uranus in the fourth. So that may happen, but I don't actually think the money may potentially come through until the retrograde, when Mercury, other people's money, retrogrades with Venus. So you might be seeing a completely different financial situation like at the beginning of March. And then that'll trine Jupiter, so that's going to give you the opportunity to expand your home. And then I would really, really be watching what's happening when planets come into conjunction with Saturn, knowing that you're a Saturn-ruled chart, knowing that you're in a Saturn year. Sun and Venus hitting Saturn is what you want to watch for. Saturn and Neptune meeting, so like February 20th-ish. And then when Venus meets with Saturn, March the 7th through like the 10th. And then when the sun is coming into conjunction with Saturn too, this is going to be about getting solid when it comes to the home front, March 26th-ish. And then when Mars is coming into conjunction with Saturn, that's going to be another one. And that's going to be like right around mid-April. It's almost looking like you guys are going to get set up in a new place. It may still be temporary, but it's going to be something that I think is going to be better than what you're doing. And you're not going to focus too much on business stuff until you're getting into like some like Libra transits and some Mars transits. So I could see like a reversal of some of your career things in the fall. I could also see getting back into a schedule and focusing on work also, and your partner feeling better and being able to help you after like some of the Mercury retrograde that's going to happen in June. But if we look at this from the return, because we were looking at the return in Phoenix. So this is the solar return all in the first house. So it's mirroring what's going on in your natal transits. Moon, partner being able to assist you, which you will probably see, especially around the summertime after those retrogrades happen in June and July. Mars, moving home. Mercury, changing the schedule and work. Sun, that's going to be about personal transformation. I mean, you're literally feeling like everything's on you. And it's because it's all in the first house. So the way to lean into this is to get creative with the trines to Uranus and start thinking about diversification and like how you can find small ways to get crafty and be thinking about businesses that you could do that can involve Taurus things. So this could be about things that are connected to food, catering, flowers, growth, agriculture. Maybe it's going to be about connecting to socializing parties. It could be like rentals. I mean, simple things that you could be doing. And it looks like at 27, you might be going back and forth between two things. So it's like, well, we can do this or we can do that. And also all these planets are connecting to your second house too. Yep, sounds spot on. He's a Virgo, sun and rising. So the South Node's going through his transits, right? And then, you know, Uranus going through his 10th house. There's a lot of destabilization with work. Probably once he gets through some of these like eclipses and the health transits, like the next month or so, things may improve, but you're going to want to see if he's actually doing better come like Taurus season. But it's on you. You're not going to have a lot of support until the summer. I do think that, you know, Uranus in the 5th house, whether you have friends or you have children or you have new creative hobbies that you want to tap into, you may get crafty with trying to figure out a way to make money, but look, the North Node's ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter's in the 7th, so you can have a client-based business or a business where you have services or something that you're kind of offering, and then it does look like you're going to have more support where people can kind of get involved, or your partner can get involved more so, you know, probably closer to the summertime. But this is a power-up period. Like, even though it looks difficult, you'll be able to do it, and then you'll also have a stronger foundation in the process. And it's probably better to get ahead of some of this stuff now because Saturn's not squaring any of your stuff yet. Go and look into your Chiron return because that's what you're experiencing. And this is about kind of feeling like, man, why do I have to do everything by myself? And Chiron's not only returning to Chiron, but it's sitting on the South Node. So it's going to go in and out of this degree, which is probably going to have you guys thinking about, okay, what can we do to stabilize our money? Gets most serious in like March and April, and then it starts to cool off a little bit, and then it'll come back again, and you'll have the South Node conjunction and the Chiron return again in November, so you have to watch your finances there, and then it does look like things start to kind of stabilize for you. But yeah, the next several years, you're going to have Saturn that's going to be squaring your moon and then your sun and your ascendant, and I think those ones are going to be more difficult. So you can work with the opening squares to Mercury and Mars. I think it's just trying to get you outside of your comfort zone and trying to get you to be a little bit more mobile. And you're probably looking at needing to live in certain places that are going to be a little bit more cost efficient. But eventually you will get settled, especially with Uranus getting away from your IC, right? I hope that your husband does better. I mean, I think that this can be a new moon that you can really surprise yourself, so, especially looking at your solar return. Creatively, you can kind of surprise yourself with ways that you can be generating some money that can be actually very like pleasing. So start looking into stuff that you can be doing maybe with your community, with Saturn going into your 3rd house. And it could be like, you know, walking dogs, or, you know, you could be doing some community outreach programs or some other things, and you can make money while you're doing it and maybe consider a new kind of creative business that you're going to launch in the process. Sending you lots of good vibes and love as you go through that. And happy early birthday. Make sure you set some intentions there. All right, we've got Jacob. Not Jacob, it's Jess. Jess, and then Aaron, and then Tawny. Just reading the wrong name. Reading the YouTube name. All right, so let's look at Jess. All right, so for Jess, I have you here April 21st, 1983 at 10 a.m. So she is a Cancer rising, moon in Leo, sun in Taurus. Going through the new moon in the 7th house. Pluto's still squaring your sun. Saturn's also squaring your Pluto. All right. So let's see what she says. Jess, are you here? I know you sent me a bunch of like questions earlier. So let me see if I can go back and find it. She may have fallen asleep. I may be away, but I'm back, although I'll be in bed shortly. Let's see, what did she ask me? All right, well, I'm not seeing specifically that she asked me anything. Here we go. I need to go to bed. My name is Annalise Eek. Okay, see you there. No worries. Don't remember my name. I just want to check on the list. Yeah, I'm not seeing her. So, can I check if I'm on the list? Sorry, I didn't see your comments until just recently. Juggling a bunch of communication up here. Sorry, guys. All right, well, Jess, this is for you. So if you're like, what is going on? You didn't tell me what you wanted to know, girl. So I'm going to tell you what I see. Probably the big thing, obviously, is anytime we're looking at a Cancer rising chart, I'm going to be focused on what's going on with the moon. So something that you have to look forward to is that you're going to be seeing in 2026, Jupiter's going to come into conjunction with your moon. So with this transit happening, it's going to really be heating up over the summer. You're going to start to see it kind of peak up right around kind of mid-August, you know, going into the end of summer, really kind of throughout the year. It'll be kind of off and on the ascendant. On the Jupiter transit. And the moon is going to represent your emotional body and also any actions that you take because it's at a 13, and it's going to be around writing, media, creativity. Jupiter wants to bring you more joy, expansions in your home, expansions with your family, you know, expansions even in your career. So that's really going to be peaking up for you around here. So like mid-August, pretty much through about, let's say, the end of October. Okay. So when that's happening, it's going to expand your visibility, especially on media or anything that you're writing or publishing. And it's going to trine Saturn. So it's going to bring you some more stability through your career and also like redefine who you are out in the world in your professional life. A lot of career stuff is going on for Cancer risings with Saturn and Neptune going into a new sign. And you're going to see Jupiter that's going to be trining your natal Uranus in the 6th. So it can help you have some positive changes to your work and your habits and also your natal Jupiter. So there's a lot of fire trines getting activated in your chart. So I would watch like July and August, November, December, and then into March and April of 2027. Those are going to be some really peak periods where you're going to see some shifts that are going to be happening with your professional life. And I think that it's going to sprout an opportunity to travel more, maybe move, improve your vehicles, that kind of stuff. Now for the new moon that's kind of coming up, because as a Cancer, you're very much impacted by like the new and the full moons. This one is in your opposite sign. So it's in your 7th house, which is like checking in with your astrologer. It's about, you know, where you stand with relationships, how you're kind of connecting with your one-on-one relationships or your business partnerships. And it is ruled by Saturn, and it looks like Saturn is in your 9th house. So I'm wondering, are you seeking new representation as a writer? Are you looking to expand your audiences? Are you hoping to find somebody that you can work with? Because Mercury and Mars makes me feel like it could be a manager, it can be an editor. Is there some changes going on in your love life? So if you're in a relationship, is there new goals that you're setting, you know, when it comes to your relationships? And are you guys focusing on traveling more or enhancing your communication? Or are you thinking more about getting into a practice with like a teacher or a mentor or a guru, right? Because that can be Saturn and Neptune in the 9th. And also if you're single, it can be like long distance relationship themes. So where you're seeking relationships, you're meeting them when you're continuing education, or if you're traveling, or if you're like going places. And this will take place over like the better part of the next like 6 months. Now it does oppose Jupiter in your first house, and Jupiter's retrograde. So it means that you're reevaluating your health habits and your routine, and maybe you're like yearning for more relationship time or connection to another person. I also think that as a Taurus, you know, it's in a fellow sister Earth sign. It is trining your Mercury and your Chiron, so it can help you get social, but it is starting to come into a square with your sun. So you're going to feel like from this new moon, pretty much for the next week or so, as planets go through Aquarius and it squares your sun, a lot of changes in terms of like your joint finances, your intimacy. It can mean that it's a time where you're going through like a major clearing out phase of like your social groups, and there's a lot of changes kind of happening with like your friendships, and you feel like it's like difficult changes. You're trying to kind of meet new people or put yourself out there. So you will feel that off the bat, but for the next year, Pluto is no longer squaring your sun. So you're not going to be under the pressure cooker of feeling like, you know, you can't socialize, you can't connect, you can't be vulnerable with other people. And there's probably going to be some pretty big breakthroughs that's now going to be happening with your confidence and also your finances, because it is kind of tied to your communication and your money. So you see a little bit of pressure here for like the next 2 weeks, and then it's going to start to subside. I would also kind of keep an eye on the fact that you are going to be seeing down the road this year that there's going to be like some eclipses that are going to be close to your moon. So in August, when you have this solar eclipse that's going to be in Leo, which I think is arguably the best eclipse all year. I mean, you know, same sign as Jupiter, sun's in its home sign, trines to Saturn. I think it's good, but it's still a south node eclipse. So this can mean that there is some kind of clearing out of the mind, or changes with your finances, or reworking of your self-esteem, or maybe moving or making a change with where you're living or with a vehicle. So watch for that, because it's going to highlight, after this eclipse comes in, the south node swinging into conjunction with your moon, and Jupiter doing the same thing. So you're going to see like south node hitting your moon, and this seems to imply the possibility of like a move that would then potentially kind of manifest in like February, March, April of 2027, or maybe releasing something that you've been writing or kind of like working on, and now it's like ready to be shown, or like reworking a website, or restructuring something about your finances, or maybe taking time away from a job or a day job so you can do more of like your creative writing, because you're building something or writing something that looks like it's like more important. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting looking at this. Pluto's not quite in opposition to your moon yet, so I don't see any issues there. Really, I think, you know, if you want to bring in a relationship, or if you want to strengthen a bond, that's what you want to be focusing on with this new moon that's coming up in Capricorn, and lean into some of the trines that it's making to your Mercury, where you're kind of maybe showing another side of yourself in your professional life or your romantic relationships. And then also the trine to Chiron is about kind of like vulnerability, and that if you can be kind of transparent with people, you can go deeper into connections with networks, and also like find ways to be able to make more money. I think that's going to be part of this as well, right? North node conjunct right now, conjunct your midheaven. That's also highlighting this is a big focus on your career, and there will be an eclipse there also later in the year. So like this eclipse right on your midheaven at the end of August, ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter's in your second. So there's something that you're building towards that you're going to get some recognition for. Maybe you're going to publish something. Maybe there's going to be some kind of certification or degree, or some kind of graduation of sorts, or you're finally completing something that you're writing that seems very valuable to you. So it looks like you're going to be working towards that pretty much from about now until you get to August of 2026. Hopefully that's helpful for you. I'm sorry I couldn't catch you in time, but I'll see you when you wake up. All right. I know we had somebody who was asking some questions, so let's see. Did I do Aaron? Yes, I did Aaron already. Yeah. I'm pretty sure, right? Private Aaron. That was Jess. Yeah, that was the last one that we, hold on one second. Hold on. Is there another Aaron? So that was Jess. That was private. Hold on a second. Is it Aaron K? Oh yeah, no, yours is coming up next. Sorry, Aaron. I'm just plugging in a couple of people who kind of got shuffled into the mix. So just as like a rundown for who I have left, I have Aaron, and then I have Tawny, and then I have the other Corey, and then I have Kyle, and then I have Haley, and I also have Stacy on this list as long as Stacy sends me her information. And she did. Okay, so if you hear your name, that means I still have you. Thank you. All right, let's move on. Let's take who's next here. So we're going to take Aaron, and then we're going to take Tawny. So let's pull up Aaron. And I do have your chart, Aaron. I was looking at it. Sorry to keep you. And you should be the January 8th. And then we've got, let's see. All right, so we've got Aaron, January 8th. And that was, here we go. 1995, 1:01 a.m., Rockville, Maryland. And then your ex is November 15th, 94. But you don't know the birth time. So what is it that you would like to know, Aaron? Because I don't have much here other than no contact currently, 15 years of history. You've read from me before. As always, thank you. Sounds like the Chiron transit for you and the South Node Mars transit for you. I mean, sometimes we can just look at what's going on in your chart or their chart, and it's going to tell us what's happening. So to put it very simply, Mars rules your relationships. You've had Mars that's been coming into conjunction with Venus and also the Sun, so it's kind of getting burnt up. And it's also been in conjunction to Uranus, so it could represent that there is this bottoming out of relationship stuff and communication with partners, and it's all squaring Chiron, so it's bringing up relational dilemmas. That's like, are they going to show up or not? And then you're also going to have Saturn and Neptune going into Aries, which is not going to officially be in your Placidus 7th house, but for a lot of Libra risings, it's going to be a make or break time in a relationship where either you're going to be like, I'm done with this person, I'm creating boundaries, I want to move on to something new, or you're going to feel like the other person isn't capable of like meeting you halfway or like showing up for you, or they're kind of evasive with Saturn and Neptune, and then those relationships can kind of dissolve. But first it's Chiron. So Chiron's showing you that they're going through some kind of wounding. And then the South Node is coming up on your Mars in Virgo, which is whole sign 12, which is about kind of feeling lost or, you know, disconnected with someone. And that's also kind of hanging around for quite some time. That's not really going to start to conjunct until closer to like June, July, August. So right now, what's going on? I mean, the North Node's conjunct Saturn. It means that there is some disappointment and sorrow in regards to a romantic relationship and feeling kind of isolated or alone. Obviously, your birthday is also just recently passed. So it looks like now you're moving into 31. So you're an annual perfection. You're 8, ruled by Venus. Venus is in your whole sign 3rd of communication, and Uranus is opposing it. So it's like some shocking changes in terms of communication and relationships, right? South Node hitting your Saturn, hitting your Mars can definitely be enough to like wipe a relationship out. And then the North Node hitting your Saturn feels like a continuation of your like, you know, your back and forth that you've been doing with your Saturn return. So probably I would watch for the is it really over period when Mercury goes retrograde in your 5th. So it's going to go retrograde. It's going to come into conjunction with Venus around the end of February. You're going to have to see and reevaluate whether or not there's anything left there. You then have an eclipse that's very close to your Mars, so you're going to debate whether or not you guys want to stay connected on socials or be friends. And then you're going to see planets that are going to go into Aries. And when Saturn and Neptune and Venus are all kind of aligning from late March into April, that's probably a time that's going to give you a definitive answer as to whether or not it's going to work. And then you have a new moon in your 7th house on April 17th. So your chart, even with Saturn going into the 7th house, you know, squaring your sun means that you're kind of like, I have to move on. Like if they're not ready, you know, there is this feeling of, you know, I can't continue with somebody who's not completely sure. And then if we look at their chart, they're a Scorpio rising. I mean, it's very obvious. Uranus is still in their 7th house. A lot of unpredictable changes in relationships, and it's opposing their sun, which means they're unwilling to kind of like settle into relationships, or they think the other person is unwilling to settle. When in reality, when Uranus goes through the 7th house in Taurus and it opposes their sun, Jupiter, Juno, and Pluto, it means that they want to bring peace or they want to have stability, but like they're reluctant to change, especially with Pluto in the 1st house. they're so deeply devoted, Sun, Jupiter, Juno, Pluto, to themselves and their own kind of personal needs that they're resisting the idea of like being settled in a relationship and being committed. That's also squaring their Mars. So it's a lot of like home and kind of like career wars, where there's a back and forth between what somebody's doing career-wise and what somebody wants to do kind of like life-wise. And Chiron's sitting on his moon. So it looks like there's a lot of emotional stress kind of coming from, you know, changes with his emotions, changes with his beliefs about home, you know, pressures with work. You went through that same transit. You also have Aries moon, so you know what that's like. And then he's got North Node conjunct his Saturn too. So it's really highlighting where he has to be what? Home and alone, focusing on himself. Until he sees a positive Venus transit, nothing's going to transpire with relationships. Well, Pluto's squaring it. So he feels like he's questioning whether he wants to communicate or just let the relationship go, and that there is like the sense of there needing to be distance right now. So then we put these two charts together. And yeah, his Venus and his Mercury is on your North Node. His moon's on your descendant. It's possible when Saturn's coming up around this degree, I mean, it can represent, like, are we on the same page? You know, but that's not going to be for about another year or two. Like, the synastry is great, but the composite chart is really what you guys need to look at, because things could be really great synastry-wise, but you really should start synastry readings by being like, okay, here's the transits you're going on that are impacting your relationships. Here's the transits they're going on impacting their relationships. And then you look at it together, and then you look at the composite chart, because the composite chart is going to tell you what's going to happen. So Sag rising, Sag sun, you know, Aries moon. So this is ruled by Jupiter. What's happening right now is Uranus is in opposition to your Jupiter. It's been off and on in opposition for the last year, which means there's a lot of shakeups in communication and stress and criticism, or changes with work and pressure with daily routine, which is kind of creating a separation in the relationship. Until you see something positive with like a Mercury transit, you're not going to see anything happen. So you need to go back in time. I don't know when you guys had a falling out, but I'm wondering what happened around here when Mercury was going retrograde, when Mars was in conjunction. Like, something happened in November. Could have been early November, could have been mid-November, but something happened here with the Mercury retrograde and Mars and Jupiter. Like, whether that was kind of being like, okay, we're done and we're taking space, or there was a sense of there needing to be like an ending of the relationship and moving forward. Probably, I would assume, when Jupiter is trining your Mercury, that may bring you another opportunity to reconnect. That's not going to be for a little while. And maybe, you know, when the North Node's on your Saturn and you guys can communicate and talk about this in a much mature manner and kind of talk about where you're at. I mean, that's not really highlighting until April, which is kind of peak time for you personally. And then also when Uranus is no longer opposing your Jupiter. I mean, it's going to start to come out of opposition by about May, June. And then over the summer, you will see Jupiter come into a trine Mercury. That may improve communication, but that's not going to be until September. So this is not a chart, I mean, not right now at least, that seems like it's very feasible for the two of you guys to be able to kind of reconnect, at least in my opinion. And it makes perfect sense. You know, a lot of it is right now you guys are both going through periods where, you know, he's supposed to be alone, you're supposed to be figuring out what's going to make you feel loved and what's going to be best for you. You're also going to have to be more assertive about relationships when planets go through Aries. You're going to see this very strongly in April and May. And it's kind of the precursor for Saturn going into that particular house next year. And then, you know, you're going to see a Mars retrograde over your Mars. I mean, it's possible he comes back and he's like, can we be friends? Like, is there a way to like work this out? But it's down the road. I think that there may be other people that kind of come up for you. And I think with Pluto squaring his Mercury at a 3, it's very much about him being like, I need to change the way that I'm communicating. Like, I don't want to be communicating with her. And there may be like a no contact thing that's kind of going on, especially between now and like February. And there is the possibility of there being able to be a reconnection once he's healed when Venus is going retrograde over his natal Venus retrograde. So this is like going to start up in mid-September of this year, and then it's going to come up pretty strongly in like September, October into November. That could be a reconnection with Venus retrogrades with like the Sun and Mercury. But it's a timing thing. So it's not quite the right time yet. And be mindful with like Chiron on his moon, like he can be going through a lot of emotional wounding and he needs to heal that. And even that's in conjunct all of his Scorpio. So it's like what he does with like all this internal like Martian energy, this frustration and not working it out. I've seen Scorpio risings that have Pluto and the sun, you know, in Scorpio with the Uranus opposition. And you'll always hear from them. They're like, my partner's putting too much pressure on me. Or there's too much change going on in my relationships. Or there's something that's not really working. And you know, in reality, it's like they have all of those planets that are conjunct Pluto. They're very reluctant to change. They want to do things a certain way. So he's not going to be very willing to kind of work with you, at least until Uranus leaves some of these oppositions. So it's like, I would leave him alone. I think he needs to be alone and realize that he's pushing people away. And he may be more aware of that by the summertime. And maybe there's an opportunity for you guys to do some more connecting, you know, during the Venus retrograde. But you're going to have to combat some of these issues with kind of boundaries in relationships, I think, a lot better for the next 2 years if you want to see, you know, kind of more committed relationships that are going to stay. All right. We've got Tawny. And Tawny, let's see, she is 1:23:85, 6:47 a.m. in Mansfield, Ohio. She says, what can I expect when Pluto goes over my sun? Well, you're about to get a crash course in that, my dear. Technically, it's in your first house. I mean, it's in your whole sign second, so it can play on some of the themes of some transformation of your money and your resources and how you're spending money and what you desire. And so you have to be really careful with Pluto transits, especially when it's hitting the sun, because the sun is going to be about like your vitality and your energy. So it does deal with your joy, your creativity. It deals with love affairs. It can also deal with your relationship with men. So father figures, boyfriends, bosses. And conjunction is like the strongest aspect in astrology. So it's like a fusion of the two. So I would say number one is like an ego death. Like Pluto and the sun coming into conjunction is like something has to kind of die off and something is reborn. So it can mean that you're entering into psychological therapy, or you're learning more about psychology, or you're reevaluating yourself, because the sun represents the self and Pluto represents change and going deep, and then the sun represents the 8th house. It can also represent where there is this powerful emergence of like a new identity, right? So when I think about the sun in Aquarius, it's like doing something different, doing something that is radically different in the future, or maybe doing things you never thought you were going to do, or some powerful kind of union or merger, or something that can enhance your finances. That can be something else that I could see. Is that you? Yeah, Tawny. I just moved and got engaged. Okay, so I mean that's a positive transformation. So your status is changing, right? So that's the change in your kind of reputation. Pluto hits the sun. Now it's going to be about being a part of a team and some kind of a merger, and maybe thinking or communicating differently about the future of your career or your professional life, I think is going to be a big one. We can become very obsessed and very fixated on things when we go through Pluto transits. So there can be this sense of like needing to move away from, because Pluto is now squaring Pluto, being super overly consumed or fixated on work. Right now we're more consumed and like fixated on what new things we're kind of initiating and starting. So there could be new goals, there could be a transformation of yourself and your appearance. It can also mean that it's going to be getting you to think about how you could be kind of growing and merging with another person. I mean, the sun is definitely going to deal with not just money, but it's going to deal with like the themes of children, right? Or self-employment, or some kind of creative birth that's going to be happening. And at a Gemini degree, it's how you think, how you communicate, and how you're kind of traveling and getting around. So I would be keeping my eyes out, Tawny, because you're going to see Venus crossing your sun, which is very good, but it's going to hit Pluto. So it can mean that there are some really intense transformations that are kind of going on with your body or with your resources around the 19th of January. And then you're going to see the sun come into conjunction with Pluto, which you're going to have for your birthday chart, which is basically saying a whole year of change. And you're going to have Mercury that's making the same conjunction. So Mercury rules babies. It also rules health. So a lot of this is about you getting like super feeling like, okay, there is like this like sexual charge that's kind of happening with Pluto in the first house. and you're tapping into, these are all the things that I want to change, and this is what I want to create, and I want to shift away from being focused on just working to, oh, I'm going to be getting married, I want to be a mom, right? So there you go. And honestly, you know, with some of the trines you're going to see from Pluto in your first house on your sun to Uranus going into your 5th house will probably most likely spontaneously bring an opportunity for a pregnancy. You're not really going to see that until here. But sometime around like May, June, July, I mean, it's all going to conjunct Uranus, which could bring sudden news of a pregnancy, and then it's going to trine Pluto on your sun, right? So that could definitely happen, especially with like the Aquarius eclipses that are going to be in your first house, or along your first house cusp going into your second. And you're coming into a good period for that too, because you're going to have the North Node coming into conjunction with your moon. I do see a lot of women get pregnant with that. So like when Mars is crossing your moon, that could be a pregnancy transit, end of February going into March. And then the North Node will sit on your moon, and that's going to be happening in June, right around the time that I said these transits are going to happen. And then you're also going to have an eclipse that's going to be in Pisces, right on your moon with the North Node, ruled by Jupiter. So it's like that's the change that's coming in, that going deeper in the relationship, and then it is squaring Uranus in the 5th. There's other techniques that I use too. You know, we could look at your progressions and we could look at your solar return, but if we see some trines going on from the 5th to the 1st house, that's a pretty good indication. And it looks like the new moon that's coming up is going to be right on top of your Jupiter. So let's go back. And Jupiter can also be a planet that's bringing kind of growth and expansion. So I would set intentions for trying to get pregnant under the new moon. That's about to happen on the 19th. That's going to be right around January 18th. And then that'll be trining Uranus in your whole sign 5th. So this is where you're trying and you're also setting intentions. And then you're going to see Mars and Pluto cross your sun. I mean, I think you're just going to become really fixated with like also your eating habits. It can be that there's like new things that you're learning about health and wellness to kind of enhance fertility. That could be another thing, because that 3 can be about learning. And Pluto is going to be about regeneration. So maybe you're learning more about like binaural beats, or, you know, frequency healing, or, you know, Reiki healing, or sound baths. Things that are sound or kind of vibration is the air, to enhance the likelihood of pregnancy. So do you decide that you want to do mantras, meditations, you know? Are you being really cautious of what kind of clothes you're wearing or what kind of environments you're in? Are you going through like a radical like detox period? That could be something else too that you're kind of thinking about. But you'll see all that pressure that's going to kind of happen over like the next 2 or 3 weeks, and then it's going to start to subside when Pluto leaves your sun, and then it will come back and it's going to hit your sun again, and that's going to start up again in like July, and it'll hang around pretty much July until what appears to be about January of 2027. So thankfully it will trine Uranus. So I do think it can bring a baby. And it sounds like you're a little bit more optimistic about what this may potentially bring. But my God, I mean, probably because you're born with Sun square Pluto, you'll handle this a little bit better. Like, I feel like the Pluto square the Sun is a lot more challenging than Pluto conjunct the Sun. I mean, I've been starting to feel the effects of Pluto coming into a square with the planets that are in the same sun sign as me. And I'm like, I do not like this, but I have Sun conjunct Pluto. So I would much rather be the Sun conjunct Pluto than be going through like a Pluto square the Sun, because you have the power. So you are regenerating something about yourself. So a lot of this, I think, is going to be about learning about healthier lifestyles and other things, and like kind of reprogramming yourself when it comes to eating, and also just your values and your spending habits that are going to potentially change here, I think, for the better. So let me look at your progress chart just because I'm curious. Yeah, the eclipses are going to be on your right conjunct your ascendant. And then if you look at your secondary progressions, your progressed moon is in Leo, and it's getting ready to go into the 8th house. So that can also be a pregnancy transit. And then obviously Uranus is going into your 5th, and you're going to start seeing that it's going to be squaring that. So it's also talking about like some of the financial stuff, you know, that's going to happen between you and a partner. If you guys do decide that you want to have a baby, or you suddenly get pregnant, how does that change your finances, or who's working, or what investments you have, or even like insurance stuff? You can see some of that stuff that starts coming up. But yeah, baby dust to you. Hopefully everything goes amazing, and it's like a really good positive like rebirth that you go throughout that transit. Not everybody's crazy about the Sun Pluto transit. but it sounds like you're open to it. Definitely write stuff down, like be making notes about the things that are kind of happening. Okay, so who's still waiting for the reading? We want to be sure that we have everyone. Let's see. If you missed the window, we're not able to take anybody else because we still got a couple other people that we got to take, guys. Sorry. All right, so we've got for Elizabeth R. You did not send enough money for a reading. I see Corey number 2. You're welcome. So if you want me to do a reading, I don't know if you're still here or not, but I will refund you because that's not the amount for the donation for the reading. So I've got Corey, I've got Kyle, I have got Haley. Am I missing anyone? Keep this here so I can make sure I have everybody. So I got to plug a couple people in really quick, guys, so just give me a second here. So Corey, Kyle, Haley, and I know we had Stacy, but did Stacy send her info? She did? Okay. All right, so let's get Corey. And let's see. All right, Corey, I apologize. I can't see everything that you said, but started voice acting, auditioning for audiobooks, got my first offer in production. Will the project do well? Can you let me know what else you were asking? I apologize, but there's some stuff that's kind of cut off. So sounds like you're doing the thing with Venus and the Sun in your second house. I like that, the voice acting stuff. Jupiter is going to be connected to your career, and you've got some really nice aspects that's happening with Jupiter trining your ascendant. Money is going to be more about Venus. Yes, you're in a Pluto square, so there's a lot of like overcoming some of the fears regarding money and resources or being seen, but I could see like the planets going through the 12th house, squaring your Venus is you being able to make money behind the scenes. Not being seen, being able to do it privately, you know, not showing your face, like feeling like you can be a little bit more confident. And then obviously giving you a bit of like a boost in your income, especially once we start seeing Venus going through Pisces and sextiling planets in your second house. So that really helps around the end of February. And then you will see this again when Venus is getting into your second house, which is going to be kind of April. And then another wave of it when Mars goes through there, that's going to be in May. So the positive, I think, is that you know, you do have some nice aspects that are kind of happening where there's been a lot of work that you've been trying to work on through the Mercury retrograde and the planets that have been going through Sagittarius in like, you know, November and December. Probably pretty confusing because there was like a lot of changes going on in the type of work that you were doing, and it was probably making you kind of question like, is this going to work out? Is this a good idea? Should I continue to keep doing it? This year you will see that there is going to be a Saturn square Jupiter. So even though I see pockets and windows where I think you're going to do pretty well, I'm still realistic with the fact that Saturn going into, you know, Aries, coming into a square with Jupiter means that you're going to have to see if there's going to be consistent work that's going to keep coming through, doing anything that's connected to voice acting. The voice is going to be the second house, Aries. So you might feel like you're having to work harder to do some of this work or to find consistent pay in April. You may also feel that a little bit in the end of May when Saturn squares, and then it's going to come back and it's going to square your Jupiter again around early to mid-September, and then it'll square one more time, and that's going to be happening right around here, and that's going to be around kind of like, you know, mid-February of 2027. So the way that I see it is almost like you're going, all right, I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep at it. You know, obviously I would say take care of your voice. There could definitely be some like hoarseness and some things that can come in with Saturn going into the second house, but you're going to want to work. You're going to be like, I want to do this. I've got this. Positive is that at least you're going to see some trines happening from, you know, Jupiter over the summer. So that can mean that you're getting into like a more creative kind of like business space. Maybe you have like a designated place where you're working or you're recording. Maybe it means that you're also potentially venturing into doing some kind of like work that's going to be connected to marketing, food, restaurants, things that are going to be connected to products for children, things that could also be kind of like TV shows or like entertainment. She says, let's see, if voice acting is going to grow, I also want to pivot out of my office job, get back into massage part-time and do creative stuff, and I want to work for myself soon. I'm willing to take a pay cut to do other things. My plan is a year to pivot out of the office job. So perfect. So if you're willing to do that, then this is the time to do that. That means that you're probably going to be working your tail off pretty much February through April. You may not see the immediate gratification, but I think when Jupiter goes into your 6th, you're going to feel like you enjoy more what you're doing and it's more creative in August, and then the money might start to actually flow. And if you want to get out of your day job, then you can probably be doing this when Saturn is no longer squaring your Jupiter, which rules your 10th, and you have a Mars retrograde in your 6th. So you might be scaling back on clients literally about a year from now. And then when Mars and Jupiter align in your 6th house, you're changing jobs, and then it's going to trine Saturn. So you're going to start segueing probably the spring of 2027, and then you can actually start to make like the big launch into something new. And I really like the idea of Chiron going into your 2nd house and you're making money by using your voice. It may mean that you're going to have to take better care of your voice. You're going to be more mindful. I mean, even if it sounds kind of crazy, like you're going to have to do that. And let's see what else. Saturn's not going to oppose anything, so that's good. Saturn's also going to start sextiling your moon, which is also going to give you the opportunity to start making money in a way that feels more creative and something that you can do from home. Let's see, what kind of a year are you in? So you're going to be 42 this year, so you're going to go into a Virgo year, which is a 7th house year ruled by Mercury. So selling things to people. I don't know what kind of stuff you've already done, but I could definitely see you doing stuff that's going to be like more commercial work. With Mercury being into 26, and probably by the time Saturn hits that too, you may have a couple of things where there's going to be a little bit more like people like recognizing your voice if you are getting some commercial work. So people might be really interested and kind of like recognize you for that, or you could end up doing like a gig or something that's going to be like people know you as a character. That's another way that I could see it. But like food and hospitality and things that are connected to like products with that would definitely be prominent. But you're smart to be kind of going at this from the frame of mind where you're like one step at a time. And definitely with Saturn squaring your Jupiter, yeah, you are going to have to make some concessions, you know, work-wise, especially in the spring. But as you go throughout the year, it's also going to trine Uranus. So it's going to help you go, well, it's worth it because I can have more downtime and it's like less kind of mentally draining and like taxing for me to be able to do this kind of work like behind the scenes, or even like working at night, recording things at night. Let me see, am I missing anything? I want to make sure that oh, there we go. I'm building on my voice profile and I want to be a known voice. Well, there you go. So more recognition will come when you have some stuff going on with your moon. So like, for example, when Jupiter is, you know, sextiling that, you could definitely get that, especially like over the summer. Like there may be an opportunity here, like in September. And then when Jupiter retrogrades and it's trining Uranus and also Saturn, that's also going to give you the opportunity to get more recognizable. Like a distinguished voice is very Venus or the Sun in the 2nd. When Chiron hits it, though, you just need to really make sure that you're taking care of your vocal cords, because that's going to be a theme in 2027. More my speed, less stress, office job kills my soul. Well, you're definitely going to get out of an office job with some eclipses and some retrogrades. You might start to see the light at the end of the tunnel when you have the solar eclipse in Leo, because this is about you going like, okay, I've got a new job or I've got a project or something I'm going to be working on more consistently, kind of laying the groundwork basically from August to November to start slowing down so you could really make that transition like in the springtime, right? Really exciting. That's such a cool job to have Sun and Venus in your 2nd. Of course, you like massage and aromatherapy and like things that are like earthly, but now you're learning to use this in a way that's going to be like more like comfortable and more like creative. So I think that's going to be a good move for you. All right, we've got Kyle and then Haley. And I think I might actually have to put Kyle's info in here for a second. So thanks, Red Uranus. I hope that was helpful. All right, Kyle, let's plug him in. December 27th, 19. These numbers are all over the place, Kyle. December 27th, 1971, 3:04 a.m. Is that correct? Okay. There's a couple spaces in there. I was like, am I reading this right? What is your question for me, Kyle? I have your Scorpio rising, Sun in Capricorn, Moon in Aries. Boy, you got Pluto coming up on your Venus. That seems to be like some big changes going on, either with a home, a vehicle, a female sibling, your living situation. You got Uranus coming into conjunction with Saturn, which could definitely be creating a little bit of some relationship upheaval. And you've got Saturn and Neptune that's coming out of a conjunction with your Mars. So there can definitely be some big question marks about dating, children, creativity, some breakthroughs and self-expression. I mean, there's a lot of planets that are getting triggered across the board. So if I had to talk about relationship, Venus is your relationship. You've got Pluto, which rules you, and it's about change and transformation, coming into conjunction with Venus at a 4. That tells me that there's going to be a lot of conversations about what needs to change within the relationship, and that's going to get very, very, very much a hot topic. Pretty much, let's say, like the 19th of January, until Pluto and Mars are out of conjunction with your Venus. So that's going to go until, let's say, about April. So I'm wondering, are you discussing moving? Are you guys talking about whether or not you want to buy a property, relocate, pick up and go somewhere else? I mean, Pluto rules relationships. So having Pluto conjunct Venus, the only positive is that it's about you and another person working as a team to make a change. The challenge is that Pluto can come in and it can make you go, there's just too much pressure in this relationship. There's too much drama. There could be a lot of toxic stuff that's kind of going on. And it's trying to get you to free yourself of like old habits in love and relationships. Pluto's also dancing on your North Node too at the same time. So technically it's in your 3rd, so it can be how relationships are changing through communication or through therapy. It could mean there's short distance trips or relocations or opportunities to move that can help kind of open up relationships as well. Positive is that it is trining your natal Pluto, so it's helping you kind of clear out all of like the issues and like resentment or problems that have happened in the past. It's also coming into a trine with Saturn where it can strengthen the bonds and help you focus on better communication style, but it can come through working with an astrologer, 7th house, or a therapist, right, or a mediator. And then Uranus coming into conjunction with Saturn is also trying to kind of totally shake up some long-standing kind of like blockages, especially in communication relationships. So having Saturn and Uranus conjunct in the 7th house can definitely represent a lot of turmoil in a relationship, but a breakthrough. And then also having Pluto conjunct Venus is kind of saying the same thing because it's in a Uranus degree. And then they're all aspecting your Pluto. So to me, this feels very make or break in your love life right now. It might really heat up over like the next month or two. And then you're going to see it be something that you're working on and then reevaluating, especially in the fall. So I would say like October, November, when you see some Venus retrogrades. Part of me feels inclined to tell you that part of it is you, because Pluto and Venus is trying to get you to realize that there needs to be a change emotionally or in how you're communicating with relationships, and there needs to be a change at home. Part of it is also your partner, because Uranus coming into conjunction with Saturn retrograde means that they're reluctant to communicate differently or to be settled or to make concessions and like work with you. And it looks like, you know, you're Scorpio rising, but you've got like Mercury and Jupiter and Neptune and Sagittarius in your 1st house. And that opposes Saturn. So there can be a sense of you not always either seeing things so clearly, or you're very sensitive, or you can kind of shy away from conflict. And then you've got a partner who's like a little bit more rigid or a little bit more direct or difficult when it comes to communication. And to me, it just looks like now that's all finally kind of hitting a peak point where it's like, okay, can we find ways to get on the same page or to be able to move forward? Or is it getting to a point where we need to start talking about like what we need to be doing to kind of untangle, you know, any relational issues? Being difficult with Saturn and Neptune on your Mars, because a lot of mixed feelings kind of go into that, or there can also be some questions in regards to whether or not there's still love there, or if you have children, how that can complicate things. And health-wise, you know, as a Scorpio rising, Saturn and Neptune are going into Aries. So Saturn is going to deal with your lungs, anything that deals with mental stress and communication. You're also going to find that it is about emotions. And then Neptune deals with where there is lack of boundaries or lack of awareness. So a lot of Scorpio and Scorpio risings need to be mindful. Sinus-related issues, headaches, migraines, problems also with like the face or with the nose or with the ears can kind of happen. Saturn Neptune can be about knowing your limits when it comes to drugs or alcohol. Can also show you where there could be some addiction issues or depression. In your case though, you know, it is sextiling Saturn, so it may be beneficial to work with a therapist or like a health coach or like a dietitian. It can also be beneficial with these planets that are coming into a trine with Neptune to be incorporating more flow. So think like rowing machines, you know, doing laps, surfing, meditation, you know, that kind of stuff. And I also feel like there is an opportunity for, you know, you to be able to kind of segue and go more in the direction of like bringing that more into your daily habits and your daily routine. It is squaring your sun, so it is going to be possibly changes not just in like your health, it's also going to be in your diet. And Chiron is also dancing on your moon. So like there is a sense of like really needing to be mindful of like where there's like some emotional blockages that are kind of coming up. And it can create, you know, inflammation in the face. Once again, there can also be some issues that can be going on with the digestion. You can be feeling like there's a lot of inflammation. And that's been going on for the last year and it's getting ready to subside. Travel can be really helpful, or working with like a holistic, you know, like health practitioner. That's something else that I would consider, because this can bring in like a teacher or a guru that can kind of help you work through some of these health related things. And between Pluto hitting, you know, Venus, which can definitely shake up a lot of stuff about relationships, and Saturn and Neptune hitting the ruler of your ascendant, to me, it looks like there's just been a lot of draining things going on in a relationship, and like, you know, either relationship habits or scheduling habits and things that are just not working. That's finally reaching a breaking point, and you're like, okay, either I need to kind of like find a better way to communicate, or I need to be putting my energy into something else so you're not feeling so like burnt out and having a lot more stability and a lot less conflict as you've been going through some of these Uranus transits. So you'll really see that Uranus transit start to peak when it's coming into conjunction with Saturn. So that looks like that's going to be right around the end of April. And then you're going to see Saturn moving into your 6th house, and that's going to be about health and habits in May. And then Chiron starts to leave your moon, so you get a reprieve there emotionally. And then you've got Pluto that's going to be on your north node, ruled by Uranus. Uranus is in the 12th. It's almost like there may be intermittent traveling or like taking space away from a partner, or you guys may incorporate like, you know, learning more about like couples therapy and things that could potentially give you like an opportunity to be able to, you know, have some space and then come together and be able to kind of communicate better. And because it's all aspecting each other, I would really encourage you to either pick up a book or a course that's going to be on like relationship communication. Maybe do it with your partner, or you can work with a therapist that can help you work through it. But your health and your habits really need to take top priority this year, I think, with Saturn and Neptune going through your 6th. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Kyle. Let's see. We've got Haley. And also we've got, who am I missing? Stacy. Let me pull up Haley. Let me see if I put her in here. p.m. Getting out of a bad relationship, now I'm done. Can you tell me what about love in the future? And then let me also plug in, I didn't hear back from Elizabeth. Is she not here? Who else was there? There was another person, Stacy. Let me pull up Stacy's info. There we go, January 17th, 1982. 11:29 a.m. Tweed's Head. Let's make sure this is right, because sometimes I know Australia can get a little funky. Aries rising. Partner. And that was June 5th, 74. (10:36 a.m.) All right, so let's go back to Haley here. Let me catch up on some of this stuff. Let's see. Coleman says, thanks, Candace. I was diagnosed with kidney cancer in 23. Had kidney adrenal gland removed. I had thyroid issues since cancer treatment. Praise God for health and inflammation. Well, I hope that you're feeling better. I mean, it's going to be good for you as you go through some of these transits, because you're going to be getting a hold of some of your habits, I think, a little bit better. And also you're going to kind of see where your relationship stands to see if they're helping you through that process. Who's puppies in status? Who was that? I don't know who your guys' names are, unfortunately, because they're very different than what they are on PayPal. All right, so let's go to Haley. And I think Haley, and then we've got Stacy, right? Yeah. All right, so Haley says she's just got out of a bad relationship, and she wants to know what's going on with love. Haley, did that happen when you were going through the transits in November-ish, December-ish? Right around here, December. Well, it's kind of in November going into December, but these transits, that could have been enough to get you out of a bad relationship. Retrograde in the 7th, the opposition to Uranus. I mean, this is ruled by Jupiter. You see Chiron hanging around your Jupiter. So that's also kind of highlighting for the next year. There's a lot of like relational healing that's going to be kind of going on, you know? So that's something to keep in the back of your mind, that even though you're through the thick of this, that's still going to be happening for now until about June. And then it's going to come back and it's going to hit it again at the end of the year. And then it's moving away from your Jupiter spring of 2027. And it doesn't mean you can't be in a relationship. But where other people's health habits, bad patterns, or just having too much togetherness can be creating some issues. And as you see, Uranus is crossing your ascendant. So it's going to make you want to be more spontaneous, want to travel more, want to have more freedom, and like, you know, also give you the opportunity, I think, to possibly be a little bit more open-minded when it comes to dating and having fun. South Node still swinging through your 5th house, so that's also changing some stuff with relationships. But the biggie is that Saturn and Neptune are about to oppose your Venus. And this is putting a highlight more on like platonic relationships, networking, social relationships, friends, you know, not feeling like you have to be super dedicated and like focused on like romance, especially for like the next 3 or 4 months. It will trine your 7th house, so it's about building the foundation of friendships before relationships unfold. And then you're going to see Uranus get up to 5 degrees. So it means that it's going to oppose Mercury. So there's like a lot of like going back and forth with like work scheduling changes and changes with coworkers in the spring. crosses your ascendant, and then you're going to see it start coming into an opposition with your Chiron. Like, you're going to want a lot of independence. And you're not going to be really tolerant of people who have bad habits in relationships, so they're not totally available, they're not, working on themselves, like in the process of bettering themselves. I think that's part of it. This will trine Pluto with your South Node, so it's going to be, teaching you about the power of change and how you can embrace some of these endings and kind of bring up new beginnings. And then you will start to see Jupiter hitting your North Node, which is good for like changes either in traveling or your living situation over the summer. But when Jupiter starts trining your Mercury, your Pluto, your Chiron, your Moon, it's opening the door to better relationships, which I kind of feel like you're going to see things kind of start to improve August of 2026. It could be sooner. But focus more on, in the spring, your social connections, friends, spending time with people, not needing to be like tied down in a relationship, especially with Saturn and Neptune in opposition to Venus, because I think it's more about those friendships first. And then there's opportunities to get back into the swing of being like, okay, am I doing the relationship thing, July, August? Yes, there will be a Venus retrograde. I don't really think that's going to be super relational for you personally. I mean, you're going to hear that it is for a Gemini rising because it's going to go into your 5th, but it won't for you. There's more relationship reevaluation here in early 2027 when Mars is retrograding in your 5th house. And when it's retrograding in your 5th house of dating, or you're going back and forth about a relationship, it's squaring all of your Sagittarius placements, and it's also squaring Uranus. So it may mean that there's a potential change in a relationship that could impact where you're living or whether you're moving somewhere, which is going to be the theme of the beginning of 2027. So right now, I mean, whatever you just got out of, travel, have fun, focus on having good community around you, get to know people who you could build relationships with as a friendship first, or people who could introduce you to people, or like other things that could be happening. I definitely feel like there's like an opportunity for that. I also really, really, really recommend, going and doing things in like social activities and clubs or things that are fitness related, because that could also bring in relationships with some of the trines that you're going to see from your 11th house to your 7th. Or if friends are wanting to travel, that could be another way that you can be able to connect with people. And once Jupiter goes direct too, so you'll see like in March, like that's going to open the door for you being able to possibly be able to kind of connect with people. And it's going to start trining your sun, and then it'll also trine stuff, but that won't be until later in the summer. But I think Saturn in opposition to Venus, Uranus in opposition to Mercury, and also Chiron, like there will be issues and insecurities that will come up in relationships because you're like, this isn't working for me anymore. And like you're seeing the red flags and you're kind of moving on much more quickly. So in a way, you're becoming a lot less tolerant of other people's kind of hangups and issues. And people are going to be like, well, you're not being patient. You're like, no, I'm just sick of wasting my time and like doing the same thing over and over with like different people. Right? So I think that's part of what's kind of going on here as well. So be understanding that people are going to kind of point the finger at you, but there is a side of you that is like kind of being like, all right, I kind of need my freedom, and I'm not going to just settle down with anybody. And if people are telling you that you're not very patient or you're kind of in and out of things, like that can be something that's going on. So make sure that you're grounding yourself with social connections and having like really strong, tight-knit friendships and kind of groups, right? Especially those fire months, that's when you're going to see stuff that's going to kind of pick up. Let me know what happens. We've got Stacy. And then let's make sure we've got the right one here. And then we've also got her partner. Stacy, are you still here? There we go. I've got your two charts. So looks like we've got you with the Aries rising, 19 degrees. So we came in when Pluto conjunct my Venus last year. Funny, I got a reading here with you right before April of 2025. Okay. So he came in right before Pluto conjunct your Venus. Okay. What's the hang up though? Because Pluto-Venus transits aren't easy, and you've got it retrograde, and it's at a 3. So is he debating moving? Does somebody have to make a change in their career or their home to make the relationship work? Fast forward, it's been intense. He pushed me away, pulled me back in, emotional roller coaster. We're on again while he's going through a divorce, and he pulled back a bit. Okay, so Pluto retrograde in Aquarius at a 3. a divorce, it's a Uranian sign. 3, there's more than one party involved. Something is ending, Pluto is hitting Venus, and it's creating a lot of turbulence. And even though it's impacting the way that you look at the future of your relationships, it's in his 4th house, right? 4th house from the 7th. So there's a woman that he's having a difficult time releasing and letting go of, and dealing with all of the financial and like also like complications of like ending the marriage and, you know, healing, and whether or not he's ready to like fully move forward. It's pretty point blank. It's kind of hard to avoid that when you go through this transit. Well, I mean, things are going to get kind of intense here. I mean, obviously you probably know, but your Venus return is going to be a Venus return that's exactly conjunct Pluto, and the moon is there as well. So be watching what's going on like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And then throughout this week, we're going to see planets that are going to be meeting with Pluto and Venus. So Venus Pluto is like, could be like, okay, is this the beginning of the end? Like, are we on again, off again? What's going on? Sun coming into conjunction with Pluto is definitely going to be a little bit of drama. And Mercury conjunct Pluto might be where he's kind of wigging out and he's kind of going MIA for a little bit. And then when Mars conjuncts Pluto, Mars and Venus are good, but this is about being like, can we overcome this? And it's all happening at 3 degrees. So it represents whether or not the other person is causing interference, or whether or not he's communicating his needs very well. I mean, this is just, it's going to be quite intense for like the next 2 weeks. And then it's going to start to calm down. But here's what I want you to think about. Pluto is not done with your Venus, right? So it's going to be conjunct your Venus pretty much off and on all year. So even though you have this period where there's like a huge focus of pressure, it will subside. But as soon as you start seeing planets that are coming into the fixed signs, like for example, you know, right when Mars and the Sun and Mercury are coming into Taurus, then it's going to be about, well, what about my needs? What about my values? What about my security? And I think that's going to kick up here. So like when Venus is going into Taurus and it's squaring Venus around April, early April, when the Sun is squaring Venus and Pluto, you know, late April, when Mars is coming into a square with Pluto, my needs, my security, you know, and you're going to find that it's keep pulling the energy back to you. Like if you get consumed with him being like, well, this is happening in my life, that's happening in my life, you have to look at him and you have to be like, go and handle your stuff, because you're not going to do this. And sometimes when you have Pluto on your Venus at a 3, it brings in another person if you do decide that you want to like leave. And I'm not encouraging you to do that, but you will see another person will show up and be like, well, I'm ready. Like, can I be your friend? And it might be cool being friendly, knowing that you're going through this like difficult dynamic, and be kind of waiting around for you. Now, until there's something that's happening with your sun, which the new moon is, it's right on your sun. So I would set intentions for this new moon around your birthday to basically be like, okay, I want to feel like I have control over, you know, my love life, and I want to have some kind of like clarity. Jupiter will oppose that, so there can be a little bit of space in the spring from somebody through that opposition. And then you're going to have eclipses with the South Node in your 5th house, which could also be releasing and letting somebody go, but it would be on your own terms. It's trining Saturn. This is also trining Jupiter. Conjunct Jupiter, trining Saturn, sextiling your 5th house. So this could be a time where you're meeting somebody new or you're releasing someone. And Jupiter will oppose your Venus with Pluto, so it means that you're kind of entertaining the idea maybe of a new person. And then Venus will go retrograde in your 7th house. Think back to what happened in 2018. This is a very similar Venus retrograde is what happened then. And this is where you're either getting in or out of a relationship, and it's going to go right over your Jupiter. So there's going to be more things revealed in a relationship as to whether or not somebody is ready, and it's squaring Pluto on your Venus. Like Pluto is going to be a problem all year. Between squares from Taurus to that, between eclipses in opposition to it, Jupiter opposing that, which is going to make it more difficult to communicate what you need. And then they're going to be consumed with what's going on with their kids. And then Venus retrograde, where somebody still might be off and on because Venus is squaring Pluto and it's ruled by Pluto. So like there is some stuff going on. Pluto transit is hit this time. Mars is about to conjunct. His divorce is messy. Final separation. I'm nervous. The eclipses Aquarius will be interesting. My life is consumed by his. Well, that's the problem. Your life being consumed by his. That's the perfect obsession, fixation, you know, like all of that stuff. And personally, I mean, oh yeah. Ugh. And he's got Pluto that's going through his whole sign 7th and is squaring his Venus. See? So the problem here is that He's facing a lot of relationship turmoil one way or another because all these planets are going through the 7th house, ruled by Uranus, and obviously he's got Chiron in opposition to Uranus. So he's not in like the phase of really having to kind of flush everything out. It's going to start coming up over the next couple of weeks, but then when the eclipse comes in, that's like, no, he has to do it. And it's squaring Uranus, so it's a change in his status and finalizing like the divorce. And also it means that he's creating a lot of like emotional turbulence for like another person who he's in a relationship with. I think Uranus changing signs will help his relationships because then it's going to start to trine Pluto. So if he moves away from the ex-wife and the house and things kind of stabilize in that regard and he has more freedom, you know, things could be a little bit easier in the summer when there's some trines here. And you're also going to see that Pluto is still squaring his Venus all year. I mean, all year. And Saturn's opposing his Pluto. So what's the deal? Are they arguing over a property, over a home? Because Pluto's at a 4. And then he's got Jupiter in the 12th house. Okay, so he's not really like coming back online in a way until like July or August. When planets are crossing his ascendant and then he has an eclipse trine Saturn, I think things will be better. But he's no longer in the phase that's like, oh, it's about me, it's about me. Maybe he's acting like that because of the changes that he's going through, like physically and financially. But as soon as the South Node goes into Leo, for a Leo rising, it means you cannot be having your ego attached any longer to it's only about me. It's only about my needs. It's emphasizing the North Node, which is basically saying, no, people are going through changes too, or people are being impacted by, you know, your kind of emotions or your reactions too. And Pluto being in that house, whole sign is saying like people have like a real issue with some of like the emotional kind of drama and like blowing situations out of proportion. Jupiter going through this house. And then when Jupiter represents romance and it's opposing Pluto, he's going to be like, wait, won't you take me back? Like he'll be like pulling you back in like August. But yeah, the eclipses are highlighting he needs to consider other people and that there's some real emotional kind of issues going on there. And then Uranus is going to trine Pluto, so that's good. It's not on his sun yet. And technically the second marriage is the 9th house, or like the second significant partner. So that would be Mars. And so it does look like Jupiter is hovering around Mars. So it's like in a way like you're kind of being kept in a holding pattern and you're very emotional about it. And you might speak out about this a bit in March and April, and then it's going to come up again in July. And then I think if you're taking a step back in July, he's trying to pull you back in August. But the Venus retrograde in your 7th house over the fall is like, I mean, I kind of feel inclined to tell you, you could literally be hands off with this man all year and then talk to him in October and then be like, okay, are you done with stuff yet? And he would still be going through stuff. And like you will still be going through stuff by proxy connection to him. Right? So if you look at your guys' synastry, your midpoint, you have a Gemini rising with Moon in Scorpio and Sun in Leo, so Sun in Aries. So Saturn's coming up in conjunction with your Sun. That means that there needs to be more of a focus on like not just what's going on with each individual person, but being like, how are we both making changes and like doing what we need to do to kind of create boundaries so that way we can have a healthier relationship dynamic. It may mean that there is a sense of being like, hey, you know what, we need to take some space in April. That may happen. With Saturn hitting the Sun in the South Node and taking a big break from communication. But like Neptune's going to sit on your composite Sun all year. That's going to be like, well, who's really in control? Like, don't allow him to make you feel like you don't have any control or any say with what's happening. Otherwise, he's going to kind of drag you through this for like another year. And Jupiter in opposition to Jupiter is making it more challenging for you guys also to be together too, because it's about home and family changes. Like, Saturn and Neptune hitting your composite Sun in the South Node is going to make somebody feel like they have the upper hand, right? Yes, the property, she wants it all. Yeah. He stands to lose the entire fortune to her. It's quite upsetting to him, like an ego death. I mean, you know, which is understandable, but like the fact of the matter is wherever the eclipses are is where the karma is, and the South Node's going through his 6th house, which means he's probably put way too much emphasis on physical things, and so that needs to change. So I would advise you, just looking at your chart, to really look at what's going to happen down the road. If you know that there is going to be some need for him to focus more on being available in relationships and dropping the ego, And if your chart is saying the next like 2 years are going to be about you being more assertive in relationships and not letting other people pull you into the drama and overpower you, which a lot of relationships do with your moon, Pluto, Saturn in the 7th, it's about being more of like an authority and knowing when to draw the line and not like internalizing it and taking that stuff in. And Chiron going through your first house is saying the same thing too. And I think you're in a holding pattern because Jupiter's in your 4th. You're not moving in with him. You're not changing your home. You're focusing on creating your security. You have a partner at a safe distance, creating those boundaries. And then you're going to find that April season and also September and October is when there's big defining moments. And I think if he's not ready to give you what you need, which I can't imagine doing the back and forth until October, October might be the time where you're like, I can't do the in and out anymore. Especially with some of the Venus retrogrades that are going to square Pluto. Go back and think about what happened in 2018. You should have seen like a similar theme that kind of happened then. But watch for April in your composite chart being like a really big turning point where you have to be like, maybe we can't talk because you need to go, you know, figure some stuff out. Yeah, that's a lot. You have a lot of cardinal squares that are getting activated with your Chiron. Chiron square, Chiron opposed, Chiron. Anyway, I hope that was helpful, Stacey. Definitely come back and let me know, especially like in April and as we get into like the fall, what's kind of happening with some of that stuff. But this is a time to really focus on your vision for what you're building. All right, well, hopefully that was helpful for you guys. Obviously, that was a long one, so I'm going to get going. But make sure you're subscribed. Join me, guys. Next Friday, we're going to do live tarot if you guys want to hang out. And do consider subscribing, liking, commenting, sharing. Join me on Sunday for the Astro Weather. We're going to talk about all of the intense Pluto transits this week. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I will see all of you guys here very soon. Take care.